Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Turkey Day.
Turkey Day. I stole that impersonation of a turkey from Aaron Weekly.
Oh, that's his impersonation?
He does such a good turkey impersonation.
What a niche.
I know. Before I knew him, I think I went gobble, 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 gobble.
Her standard.
Yeah, but then he goes, and I think it sounds more like a turkey.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, it's a great day. It's a day to give thanks. Today on Experts on Expert, we have Sam Harris, who everyone knows. I love his podcast, Waking Up with Sam Harris. And this has been a long time coming. We've talked about Sam endlessly.
Yes.
But what is really relevant, and I want to give a big, big warning that this episode, more than any one we've ever done probably, is, for lack of a better term, potentially divisive. And we're quite critical about religion in varying degrees between he and I. And then Monica, there's kind of 3 points of view. But, I just want to warn everyone that if that is a topic that will not make you feel good, I just want to warn you because it's quite heavy in that.
Yeah. And another thing to just remind people is that this podcast is about learning about our guest and what makes them who they are and what they're interested in and what makes
their work
tick. Yes. So this stuff that we are talking about is part of Sam's DNA at this point. It's what he finds the most compelling. So there's no way we're going to be able to interview Sam and not talk about this stuff because it's what he finds important, and that's okay. Everyone can have different things that they...
He's written books on it.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you're interested in Sam Harris, please enjoy. It is a dense mother effer.
Yeah, he's a smart cookie.
Don't try to listen to it after you've gotten all that in your tummy because you'll probably get a little sleepy.
That's true.
And again, y'all know how I feel about the menu. I don't love it. But most certainly right now I've got at least 6,000 calories of white enriched flour by way of my favorite Hawaiian rolls. I don't mind giving King's a shout out.
Sure.
It's a free shout out. Boy. You know who gets me through this Thanksgiving? King's Hawaiian rolls.
I can't believe you have to get through with
I do.
The stuffing and the sweet potato casserole. And you have to get through that? All right.
I got to get through it, but I got to tell you, it's a nice, soft ride when I tear into that loaf of King's Hawaiian. So please enjoy Sam Harris, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We get support from Quince.
Have you been wearing the Quince linen shirts?
Yeah, I've been wearing them a suspicious amount. Yeah, European linen ones, they're $34, which is genuinely insane for how nice they are.
It doesn't even make sense.
Well, here's the deal. They work directly with the factories, cut out all the middlemen, so you're paying for the actual quality and not some brand's marketing budget. Everything's 50 to 80% less than comparable stuff. I love it because it's all very classic and traditional, and I know I'm going to be able to keep it for a very long time, and the quality's off the charts.
That's true. The style is very consistent. Whatever you get there, you walk down the street, you're going to look good. They have these lightweight cotton sweaters, which I love for when it cools down at night. It's nice drape around your shoulders in the summer and then throw it on when it gets a little cool. And it's not just clothes. They do home stuff, ding, 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 travel stuff, everyday essentials. It's all the same model, quality without the markup.
Make your summer wardrobe easier. Go to quince.com/Dax for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Dax for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Dax. This episode is supported by Helix. All right, let's talk about something we both really care deeply about: sleep.
It's the most important thing. I've had my Helix mattress for years now, and I genuinely think it's one of the best investments you can make for your home. Mine still feels just like it did when I first got it.
Well, that's the thing. It's not one of those mattresses that caves in after 6 months. These things are built to last. And, I'm a side sleeper. I ordered a side sleeper, and I get hot, so I have cooling. And I can't tell you how much more comfortable it is to be in there not sweating and tossing and turning.
Cooling is really important. I've read that you're supposed to sleep a little bit cold. So I also have cooling. And they have over 20 models, so it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. You just go take their quiz and they match you to what actually works for your body.
Plus, they've got cooling upgrades, which heading into summer, non-negotiable.
Truly.
Go to helixsleep.com/armchair for 20% off. That's helixsleep.com/armchair for 20% off. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. helixsleep.com/armchair.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
So,
Sam Harris, I don't think there's been any person on our podcast that's been talked about more. I think we bring you up. If I had to say a percentage, I got to say it's 80%, right? At least,
Really?
yeah.
Probably.
4 out of 5 episodes, we either cite you or we talk about some other guests you've had on. So you are our North Star, even though our show doesn't resemble yours at all.
right, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's great.
We even considered having a sound effect every time.
We bring
We
it
brought
up.
you up.
We wanted to play a few bars from your theme song.
Yeah.
Didn't we? Did we give you
You
that music?
You supplied it, and then we
It
got
didn't work.
We got lazy.
Okay.
It's not that it didn't work.
We never followed through.
I'm
Right.
sure it would have worked. But for folks who don't, I do think a lot of our listeners have checked you out because we do talk about you incessantly. But for folks who don't know about you, you have a philosophy degree from Stanford.
Yep.
Yeah, you're a neuroscientist. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I have a PhD in neuroscience. The truth is, I function more as a philosopher of mind these days because I am not in the lab running experiments, or at least it's been a while. It's been about a year since I published a proper neuroscience paper. And honestly, I went into neuroscience very much as a philosopher of mind. I just wanted to know more about the brain as a basis from which to talk about the mind. My motives have always been to think and write and speak about this intersection between philosophy of mind and moral philosophy and scientific breakthroughs in understanding ourselves biologically and just our general conception of how to live a good life.
You couldn't have been born at a more perfect time to have been interested in philosophy. And then also this technology comes along where you can actually look and see what's happening inside, right? To some degree. I mean, we're not totally there yet, but you can propose questions to people, right? And then you can just watch what part of their brain is firing while they're evaluating that question, right?
You could really study any act of higher cognition or emotion that is compatible with people being perfectly still inside a scanner. So emotion is the thing that would kill your data. So, and there are many things you can do, but there are many things you obviously can't do. But like studying someone athletically, they need to be visualizing what they're doing, but they can't be actually doing any of it.
You also are an author. You wrote The End of Faith, you wrote The Moral Landscape, and you wrote Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion, and you have the Waking Up podcast, and which I assume you stole that title from your own book.
Indeed.
That's a safe assumption. But I came to know you, I believe a friend of mine recommended the Jonathan Haidt. I never pronounced that correctly.
Height, yeah.
Haidt.
Yeah, he hates when you say hate.
As he should. But yeah, the first podcast of yours I heard was, but let me back up. That's not true. Many of you might know, and when I'm explaining to friends who you are, I go straight at, well, he's the guy who fought Ben Affleck on Bill Maher.
Right.
Yes. Would you say that's one of your more famous moments?
It is, for better or worse. Yeah, that went more viral than most things.
Yeah. And that was before I was even like a big consumer of your thought process or anything. But the thing that was really glaring to me in that debate where I was getting frustrated was you were attacking an ideology and he was insisting you were attacking a group of people.
Right.
And would you say that was kind of the division in your mind that was happening? Because it was about Islam and Muslims. And you're very critical of Islam, as you are very critical of Christianity and Judaism and probably all organized religions. And I think you were trying to make the distinction saying, not only are we allowed to, but it's incumbent upon us to attack bad ideologies, right? We have some obligation to point out bad ideologies. Is that fair?
Yeah. Well, so the distinction is utterly clear in my mind, but it's surprisingly difficult to get across for most people. So and sometimes proves impossible. So it's the distinction between ideas and people.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a very strong sense, and I think there's a fair amount of evidence to back this up, that all the mayhem we see created by people in the world, most of it is not the result of bad people doing bad things they would do anyway because they're bad. It's the result of good people, or at least psychologically normal people just like ourselves, under the sway of bad ideas. I think bad ideas are
some bad software.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
bad ideas are far more powerful than bad people. Again, it's not to say that the Hitlers don't exist, or the people who are true psychopaths or sadists who will do bad things in whatever context they find themselves, presumably. But ideas are really what do the heavy lifting for us. And in the most perverse case, you have people who are genuinely good people, really compassionate people, really committed to helping others, but their conception of what helps is nuts, right? And completely at odds with any rational project for maximizing human well-being. So there are people who are, in the Christian context, who think that Jesus is going to come back in their lifetime and throw sinners like me into a lake of fire. And that's a good thing, because that's, the God has the creator of the universe, all knowing and all loving, has for some reason created the universe this way, as this kind of massive psychological experiment where you're tested to see whether or not you can believe in him on bad evidence.
Right.
And that this is just the way things should be. And they're genuinely moved. Some of these people are genuinely moved by compassion to spread the gospel to others. And this is true even with a group like ISIS. It's many people think that ISIS was simply attracting all the world's psychopaths to one place, and these are people who would do terrible things anyway. But that's clearly not the case. I mean, you just have to read the biographies of specific people who have dropped out of medical school in London to go fight for ISIS, and they're under the sway of very specific ideas about jihad and martyrdom and just the way the universe is structured morally.
Well, you had a great guest on, I forget his name, but he himself had allowed himself to be recruited. Do you recall the guest I'm talking about? He had put himself in a position to be recruited numerous times in the pursuit of writing about it. And one of the things he said he found to be kind of unilaterally used as an approach is they're really preying upon your sense of guilt, right? That we all have these things that we've done that are shameful, and that this is a path to redemption for our own personal shame.
Right.
And that's a part of all the recruitment. And I thought, well, now we're getting close to something human I can comprehend, which is we do all as humans seem to have this perverse feeling that we need to repent. It just seems like a really easy thing to get people to succumb to, is this, the Christians are born with original sin, right? And this is a very easy concept for people to adopt, because we all do feel shame and we feel guilt about not being perfect human beings, and we kind of carry around this luggage of it. And if someone offers you a way to not carry that around anymore, it can be appealing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much about human psychology that is not optimal. We have not evolved to.
We have a lot of bad vestigial shit, right?
Yeah,
that helped us at one time that now probably is hurting us.
Yeah, or it helps us in certain contexts, but those are not the majority of the context in which we live. So you have a strong capacity to fear other people, or to worry about the sexual experience of your mate or your child, and there are taboos around sexuality, and it leverages jealousy and disgust in a way that religions canonize, right? So then you have whole cultures where you can have a phenomenon like honor killing, where so in the most perverse case you have the phenomenon, again, this is widespread across the globe, where if a girl gets raped, the response of the men in her life is not compassion. It's a shame that is so overwhelming that they want to kill her for having brought this shame on the family. The only way to expunge this shame is to kill her. And this is where political correctness on this idea takes you. And so to come back to where we started, this was the fight I got into with Ben Affleck, because he he just said, that any criticism of Islam was quote gross and racist. I mean, that's the meme that got exported from that encounter. It's just, I was clearly talking about ideas, and not only was I clearly talking about ideas, I said, I bracketed what I said with this claim that, it's very hard for people to make this distinction between ideas and people, right? Because it's, Islam is a set of ideas. You can convert toward it and away from it. It doesn't matter. The color of your skin is irrelevant. Muslims are not a race.
Yeah, you can choose to be a part of that group.
Yeah,
unlike
so I made all of this clear, and then he exemplified all of the problems of having this conversation because he then just was unwilling to make this distinction between ideas and people.
And I don't want to interrupt this with something trivial, but I'm going to. Monica's number one crush in her whole life is Ben Affleck.
Long time crush.
Yeah.
Long
Oh, well.
time.
Now, did you
My
feel
condolences.
like when you were watching this?
It's okay. I watched it, and I understand everyone's points.
But Monica, what's your background? Are you
I'm
Indian or
Yeah.
But Hindu, Christian, Muslim?
kind of nothing, but my parents are Hindu technically. Yeah, but I wasn't raised in any religion.
But when you were looking at Ben through rose-colored glasses, were you,
As I always do.
As you always do, were you weighting his side of the argument a little bit, or did you? Could you even remember the feelings you were having? Like, wow, he's making kind of a logical point, but I do love him.
No. Well, but I do love him is at the end of every sentence.
Right, as it should be.
But I also, my first inclination is always to side on the more liberal, more people-based, more Ben Affleck side. Like, that's my first response. But I am also logical enough to see the difference. And I love your podcasts. I'm as equally a fan. We talk about your podcast all the time.
It's the foundation of our friendship.
Basically. I can see the difference between ideas and people, but I also see that he probably felt fear.
You were weaponizing the right?
Fear, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
It was based out of this fear that whatever you were going to say was going to help, propel a group.
Right.
The actual racists who do
racists.
hate Muslims. It's It's not your quote. I think it is Majid
Nawaz,
who said that the left has it wrong on Islam and the right has it wrong on Muslims, which I think is a very cuts right through my opinion of it.
Yeah. Well, and just to be clear, you can be focused on the suffering of people, but you should pick the right people. So I'm very focused on the suffering of people in the Muslim community who are in hiding because of their ideas.
They're the largest victims of all this to begin with, right?
They're the largest victims of Muslim terrorism. I mean, if you hear that a suicide bombing happened somewhere, you can safely bet that it was Muslims for the most part who were blown up, right?
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not Americans getting blown up day after day.
Well, I will say when I've, vocalized similar opinions to yours, people are quick to say, well, the Christians are just as bad. And I will say, absolutely. And if I were at a dinner party during the Crusades, you would hear me talking incessantly about how crazy the Crusades are. I don't happen to be at dinner parties during the Crusades. I mean, any one of these religions has had a period, that has been as productive in that capacity. But it just so happens that currently there's a leader in it.
Yeah, there are contexts in which dogmatic Christianity might be worse. I mean, that the specific consequences of specific beliefs is what matters, right? And so it's
and Christianity has been the hegemonic religion in that our government, like it or not, church and state isn't truly separated, and that we've had policies for 200 years now that are strongly motivated by Christian ideals that have had gigantic global impacts that I don't think you would deny.
No, I wouldn't. I think generally speaking, Christianity has been beaten into submission by modernity for the last 200 years. So you're not getting the same kind of theocratic overreach, but you can definitely find pockets of Christianity that look a lot more like the Taliban than even Bible thumping Christianity in the U.S. does.
Sure.
And I mean, so in a place like Uganda, Christians are killing gay people and killing children who they think are witches. I mean, it is the Middle Ages in certain.
Yeah,
but the crucial thing there is that all you need to do that as an otherwise good person is a sincere belief in the reality of witchcraft, right? Like, you simply you don't, presumably you don't understand something about medicine or about meteorology or whatever you think these witches were affecting, but a belief in witchcraft is all you need to do the crazy things that inquisitors and other,
because you're saving your community. You have ultimately some kind of altruistic goal that you can justify.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare. This episode is brought to you by SoFi, the all-in-one finance app where you can bank, borrow, and invest all in one place.
Let's talk bank accounts for a second. The average bank savings rate is 0.39% in interest. You're earning pennies on your savings, but it does not have to be that way.
With SoFi high-yield checking and savings, the money barely making moves sitting in your savings account can earn over 8 times the national average savings rate with eligible direct deposit.
No account or overdraft fees, which feels rare these days. You can get your paycheck up to 2 days early, perfect for getting ahead of a bill or grabbing what you need right when you need it.
Plus, get up to a $300 welcome bonus when you sign up with eligible direct deposit. Sign up for SoFi checking and savings at SoFi.com/armchair. SoFi checking and savings is offered through SoFi Bank N.A., member FDIC. Terms apply.
Confidence. It's listening to your gut. It's moving forward, even when the path ahead is unclear. For nearly 160 years, Pacific Life has helped people keep their promises, building confidence for generations. Whether you're confident in your financial future or just beginning to envision it, we're here to help. Ask a financial professional how. Pacific Life, the power of a promise. Pacific Life Insurance Company, Omaha, Nebraska, and in New York, Pacific Life and Annuity, Phoenix, Arizona.
So those are all the ways I agree with you. Now, a couple of the ways that I feel like you don't give a ton of attention to is just by weird coincidence, I happened to read this book about recently about the CIA, arming what became the Taliban or all these mujahideen people against Russia. And then I also happened to watch like a 4-part frontline about the birth of the conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you caught that on Frontline.
No, I didn't.
It was really fascinating. But it gave me this kind of historical context that I was missing, which is there really weren't these big swaths of fundamentalist Islamists prior to the West dealing with Iran over oil in the Shahs, and that we really did create this modern fundamentalist. It wasn't anything what it resembles today in 1970, but we wanted to secure our oil. We had a puppet regime in there, right? And the Shah was overthrown in Iran, and then all of a sudden the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia started going, well, we need to overthrow the royal family, and then the royal family, which at that time it was for Middle Eastern standards, a pretty liberal country, right? They started making all these concessions to the Wahhabis, and that all really started from our meddling in that area. Would you concede to that, or? Yeah,
well, I would concede that we certainly funded and enabled and collaborated with certain of these factions, and that this is the phrase blowback is what is used to describe what happened as a result, specifically with Afghanistan and Al Qaeda. So that's all clearly documented. The reality, however, is that the quote fundamentalists have been there for 1,500 years, because it is the fundamentals of the faith haven't changed since the 7th century.
Sure.
So it's there to be leveraged.
But they weren't really mobilized. Like there was an imperial power that was controlling them, basically. And it became a very easy villain hero story to sell and perpetuate, right? So we have to take kind of responsibility for that. We made it really fertile for that to happen.
Yeah. But we had other things. No one should find it easy to globally defend the history of U.S. foreign policy across the board. There's no question we've done things that at least in hindsight, look unconscionable. But you do have to keep in mind what a threat the spread of communism seemed and in fact was. You can't be at all nostalgic about what reality was in the Soviet Union for people living under communism, and you certainly can't feel that it's a bad thing that communism hasn't spread over the whole globe, given what that reality was. So we were in.
Yeah, now we have the advantage of hindsight going that we probably didn't need to intervene militarily. Those systems collapsed themselves.
Right. But there was no way to know that.
There was no way to know that. But it is frustrating when you watch any show on the History Channel. It's basically like this huge militaristic endeavor over something that was like it would have worked itself out.
Yeah. Again, and I'm not clear how much for in each case whether the conflict was necessary or not. I mean, I think you could probably argue that the Soviet defeat in Afghanistan was part of what caused
that was crucial.
Its collapse. Yeah. And just the fact that we were outspending them militarily to the degree that we were, and they were trying to keep up with us, and the bankrupting effects of that. Yeah, it's ugly. I mean, the details are ugly, and I'm sure we don't know all the details. And it's an interesting problem that the more and more we understand the consequences of our war making, right? Mm-hmm. The more evidence of collateral damage we see, may make it impossible for us to fight not only unnecessary wars but necessary wars. Yeah. So I mean, as you know, I'm not one of Trump's many fans.
Oh, we've heard.
I won't go on a rant about Trump, but it's conceivable. I don't know that we're in that situation, but it's definitely conceivable that having someone who can credibly advertise his callousness and his ignorance, such that our adversaries recognize that they may not be dealing with a rational actor, because what we're finding ourselves encountering a lot. I mean, this happened a lot with jihadists across the board. We have adversaries who consciously leverage our own ethical scruples against us.
Mm-hmm.
So the starkest example for me here, and it's something that you never hear talked about very much, but it is morally and politically one of the more interesting and consequential asymmetries you ever find. You have the situation where there are people who use human shields, and then there are people who have to figure out how to respond to the people who are using human shields.
Right.
So you take it. This happens with the Israelis and the Palestinians from time to time, and it's happened with us in our engagements in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it is such an amazing thing when you think about it, because it is one group knowing that the other group is more civilized, more scrupulous, more concerned about the deaths of non-combatants that aren't part of their group. I mean, we're not talking about human shields, like in the Road Warrior, where they captured some of your people and you strapped them to the cars. And I mean, you have people who literally will put their rifles over the shoulders of children and shoot at our troops, and our troops will be unable to shoot back in the normal way and be deterred to whatever degree.
But can I just want to own how I can relate to that bizarre thought process, which is I will be in my car, let's say I'm texting and driving, and I get pulled over by the cop. I've just established that I'm willing to break a rule. I just did it. I openly break the rules of society. Then I get pulled over, and then the cop I interact with, I'm assuming he will act in complete accordance with the law to the letter of it.
Right.
Like I could push in any way, and I know he has to stay in this box, right? But it is very ironic because I just proved I personally don't give a shit about staying in the box, but yet I'm expecting this person to stay in the box and not pull me out of the car. It is interesting that you can both be acknowledging the frailty of the laws and yet expecting the other person to adhere to them.
Yeah, although in that case, it seems like you're engaged in. First, you've made a probabilistic calculation that you're probably not going to get caught, right? And so it's like you're not flagrantly, you're not breaking the rules with the certainty that you're going to get caught. But again, these are I'm not focused so much on rules here. I'm focused on the underlying ethics and compassion and concern about human well-being.
I guess I just know what it's like to have an expectation that the other side is going to behave the way they're supposed to.
There is an utterly cynical, fully conscious, and very systematic and well-informed program to use liberal values against liberalism.
Right.
And this happens, I mean, there are far more benign versions of this, but it is a kind of asymmetric warfare that liberalism is always vulnerable to its own scruples being used against it as weapons.
But wouldn't you agree, though, that that's just a price we have to pay to live the way we do? Right.
Sure.
So, yeah, we both agree that that's unfortunately, it's not unlike our legal system where it's like, yeah, we got to live with the fact that some guilty people are going to get off to ensure we don't put anyone innocent away. That's just, we got to make that agreement.
Except for the corner condition we started talking about, where you could imagine a situation where we have a necessary war we have to fight. You know, the next Hitler emerges somewhere, right?
Right.
And yet we find ourselves civilizationally incapable of doing what would actually be required to win that war. Yeah, like just how much collateral damage could we accept in our war making, given that we can actually see what that looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we could, you know, we certainly couldn't fight World War II the way we fought it,
No.
and probably shouldn't. I mean, there were many things we did that probably didn't materially affect the outcome of the war that caused, you know, hundreds of thousands of lives that didn't have to be lost. But so I mean, it's all to the good until conceivably it isn't, and we'll never necessarily know in advance where we cross that line.
Your bigger fear is that we have established a society and a culture right now that we can't even really evaluate when that time may be, right? That we have so much policing of any kind of ideas that might be offensive or threatening that we won't even, if that is ever required of us, we no longer have the system by which we could bring up some very provocative idea without being labeled something and then excommunicated.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a concern I have just across the board on topics that are far less fraught than this one. Just, I mean, talking about anything of social importance now seems to carry with it not only conceivable but very likely reputational risk that you're going to get smeared as some kind of untouchable, you know, and it's I mean, if you're talking about race or gender or police violence, virtually anything you see that blows up as a controversy on social media is the result of somebody having said something which in context might have been totally reasonable, or at least not, you know, beyond the pale, or if it was beyond the pale, something for which people should be allowed to apologize, right? They should be able to recognize, you know, that came out wrong. You know, I'm not that big of an asshole. But it's amazing to the degree to which this is all being manufactured by social media. It's a technologically driven phenomenon. Yeah. Because I'm not encountering this in the real world.
No, it is interesting. The example I've been giving a lot lately is, you know, Obama 10 years ago was openly against gay marriage and in fact was supporting policy to prevent that from happening. We thank goodness we've not labeled him a homophobe for the rest of his life. We allowed for him to change his mind and then get on the right side. And I don't see the latitude for people to even get on the right side sometimes.
Yeah.
Or we have a similar fear, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is this kind of sensitivity on college campuses, which traditionally, if you believe in the ideals of the Enlightenment and you believe that a lot of our progress has come from people making kind of provocative claims, Darwin suggesting Eve was not made from the rib of Adam at that time was very threatening and offensive to a whole bunch of people, or the fact that we actually revolve around the sun and not the opposite. That got Galileo under house arrest by the Pope. So those examples we can look at and quite clearly say, oh no, you need to always have a safe place to present something. And there is, I guess, and I don't know if I'm overreacting and overly fearful of this, or it is happening enough that it needs to be addressed. I fear that students now seem to have this this idea that they have some kind of constitutional right to not be offended or have their feelings hurt. And it just seems very counterproductive to intellectual discourse and throwing a lot of things at the wall, finding out some are wrong, they don't hold up. We need to throw those bad ideas up there, don't we, to even find out that they don't hold up.
Oh, absolutely. The model for me is really a philosophy seminar, where you be, in a philosophy seminar, when you're talking about the foundations of morality, for instance, you need to be able to think out loud about why something may or may not be wrong. And so, it is completely fair game, in fact, expected. It's just totally routine for someone in a philosophy seminar on a college campus to say, well, okay, so what exactly would be wrong about killing everyone in their sleep tonight? Right. So painlessly, right? So first of all, there'd be no pain. You're not imposing suffering on anyone.
Yeah.
And there'd be no one around to be bereaved afterwards. There'd be no sadness because everyone would be dead. So if the wrongness of an act relates to human suffering on some level, what's wrong with killing everyone in their sleep? Now that is a perfect starting point for a conversation about the foundations of morality.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to say that. And people have to be able to, based on a principle of charity, recognize that a perfectly good, non-murderous, non-psychopathic person would, in the right conditions, would be tempted to float that very idea.
And free to evaluate it.
But imagine what would be done to that person on social media if in a political context or a pseudo journalistic context, that comment were excerpted.
Well,
and people said, well, this schmuck can't even figure out what's wrong with killing all of humanity in their sleep.
Right. Or the Jonathan Haidt example of you go on vacation with your sister and you guys sleep together and there's no pregnancy involved and no one ever knows. Is that amoral? Like just going down that road.
Yeah, you're a dangerous pervert for the rest of your life.
Yes. If a famous film director proposed that question on Instagram, they would lose the franchise they're directing, right?
Yeah.
It's very dangerous. There's a really common debate happening currently. I hear it a lot on here and on TV and on social media, which is this notion of separating the art from the artist. Mm. And the thing I thought of today that I want to kind of compare it to and ask what your opinion is what we would never ask ourselves is, should we be able to separate the science from the scientists? So if we found out that Pythagoras was a confirmed pedophile, right, no one would ever suggest.
It seems a good chance that he was.
Well, that's true. He's in Greece.
He's in ancient Greece.
Different time. So let's just say he was. Yeah. He was a serial rapist of children. No one in the world would say, well, we should stop using the Pythagorean theorem, because it would be so blatantly obvious that this is this one thing the person actually did contribute to society and benefits all of us, and we can use it to great ends. And so no one would even consider that, nor would they with Galileo or anyone else, right? If we found out something terrible about them. So it seems so blatantly obvious that we should never throw out the science because the scientist is an asshole.
Right.
So my deduction from that is, if we are saying we should throw out the art because the artist was terrible, what we're really saying is that art isn't as valuable to human history as science is.
Well, I think there's one more thing
that
could justify the double standard there, the seeming double standard, which is that with art, the value of the kind of the wisdom and creativity and insight of the artist being successfully transferred in that medium. So it's like, I think it's interesting to consider what your feelings about a work of art change if you are told that actually a person didn't even create this. This was just an AI algorithm that just randomly sorted through data space and came up with this painting of a beautiful painting of a little girl, right?
Yeah.
So you had this experience. You're looking at this painting. Imagine, let's take a famous painting like, Christina's World, the Andrew Wyeth painting that most people will have seen.
I'll pretend I know what you're talking about. Continue.
So
yes, beautiful piece.
Everyone Google this.
I have a lithograph of it.
Okay. So this is a painting that has been much interpreted seems to, I mean, there are kind of many layers of meaning that it is successfely transmitting, right? So, for instance, it's the girl in a field looking back at
the farmhouse.
Right.
I know this, yeah.
And
she's like in a nightgown.
Yeah, she's in a dress but so.
Well, I see a nightgown. You see a
yeah,
dress. Telling.
That's right.
We're already.
yes, we're already at the crux. It's already the Tower of Babel. So
a very sexy negligee. Yeah. So she's in a negligee and she's in a field of marijuana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. But she's far from the house, and there's something kind of lonely and sad about it. It's people look at it, it's beautiful, but it's sort of there's something a little dark about it. And then there's something about the way she's painted where I think it's plausible to say that she may be a paraplegic, so that she can't actually get back to the farmhouse, or the farmhouse is either further away than it would be for someone who's not compromised in that way, and so I'm sure there are many layers of interpretation that I don't know, but
it sounds like you just transfer whatever your fears are onto this painting.
No, but just imagine if we found out that this was just computer generated and there was nothing in the mind of the artist because there was no artist, right? That changes our sense of its value on some levels. Like, okay, this is just a kind of an accident of, ones and zeros.
Right.
And I mean, it's not to say that you couldn't at some point in the future create an artificial intelligence that would be a real artist, it could even be a conscious artist, but let's assume that we don't have that now. And this was just, pure blind algorithm.
Control Alt 796, enter, and this spit out.
And we got Christina's world.
Yeah.
So that does deflate the whole thing. And there's something similar here where if you find out that the artist was a serial killer, or like you're admiring one of the clown paintings of John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah.
That does change your feeling about it, and there's not that kind of residue with the Pythagorean theorem, because it's just that either works or it doesn't.
Okay, so there's two things. One is you would make the choice to let that affect your feeling of it. If you would be retroactively changing what your impression of the painting was. You decide. I liked the Cosby Show, and now it's not funny to me.
Right. Well, it's not funny. At least it has another element to it, because in that case, I mean, now we're not even talking about just a work of art. We're talking about
seeing the person. That's a bad example.
Himself.
Yeah. I shit the bed on that example. But let me say, let's take it one at a time. Do you think that Copernicus's contribution to humankind is more or less or equivalent to Shakespeare's?
Well, it's certainly in the same ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, if we found out that Shakespeare was this horrific guy who was anti-Semitic or something, would we be making the right decision to rob all of us of his work and all the happiness and joy and flourishing that is derived from it because the source was tainted? That to me seems logically lazy or something. It seems like, maybe it bumps for you for a second, but you need to work through that.
Well, you can sort of, again, there's no bright line here, but if you make the art good enough and you make the moral infraction of the artist trivial enough, well, then it becomes a non-issue. It's when those two, curves begin to cross, and the art wasn't that great anyway, and this person is a monster on the scale of Hitler. Well, then it's trivial. Then we know that we don't have to pay attention to this guy anymore. But the interesting territory is where the art is great, or the contribution to human knowledge is great. Yeah, and the guy, by any moral standard of today, belonged in jail.
Yes.
That that's interesting, and there's no clear answer. You just have to. Well, decide.
That's what I'm finding. It's like, and again, I think it's one of our failings, and you would know neurologically more than I do about why we're so drawn to it, but we're so drawn to a black and white yes or no. We have a definition, and we're so opposed to evaluating everything as it comes. It's so much more laborious to do that. But yes, as we go through these examples, I'll bring up Michael Jackson. I think on any given day in the world of 6 billion people, probably several 100,000 people's day was made by hearing "Beat It" on the radio this morning around the globe.
Right.
And it just seems like a weird proposition to me that because he was likely a terrible pedophile, that those 700,000 people should not have a great day. It just that, and so it's interesting. You give that example, and people generally go, "No, I don't think we should take Michael Jackson off the radio." I don't think many people would agree to that. Many people would say, "Well, we should take Cosby off TV," which I have no dog in that fight. I didn't watch the show to begin with. And it is weird to look at the person, I suppose, that has done these heinous things. But it is all dicey, and it all almost requires a like per incident evaluation. But we have now aligned ourselves so firmly in left, right, all these binary compartments that it seems less and less possible for us to do that. Do you think that's a problem?
Well, it is a bandwidth or cognitive overhead problem. And the reason why we need a sort of moral bureaucracy much of the time is that it just we don't have the time or the attention span to figure out everything as though it were the first time we were considering this problem in human history. So you just sort of you need to find bright lines where it's okay. Well, this is the bin we put everything of that type in, and we don't think about it. But in this space, it is. I don't see how we would generate those criteria. It really is a case by case basis of necessity, and it's also just not even it's not the government doing this. This is not a policy that has to be global or federal or even local. This is you're talking about. What does Disney do with its archive when it finds out that one of its stars did something heinous, right?
Right.
And that just seems like a judgment call, which now, unfortunately is being driven by an amazingly thin-skinned concern about what's happening on Twitter in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, it appears to me, without any data to back this up, that everything's being steered by the craziest 5% on the left and the craziest 5% on the right. They're making the loudest headlines, and then that is what people are reacting to. But just in this case of separating art from the artists, it appears that there's only two camps to be in. You're either in favor of separating the art from the artist, or you're saying, no, there is no separation, I'm against it. Like, those appear to be the options out there for people. If you're 18 and you're defining your identity, I feel like that's a camp you have to pick.
Yeah, I just don't pick, because it's just there's a third option.
Okay.
The third option is give me more of the details, right? And how much do I like the art, and how bad was this person, and how sure are we that there's not another side to the story? It's so take Picasso as an example. I have a vague sense. I don't think I've ever read a biography on Picasso, and so I consider myself fairly uninformed about the details of his life, but I have a vague sense that he was
liked young women,
an incredibly boorish paramour of all the women who got involved with him. And, he's somebody who, by any modern standard, I'm sure was a total schmuck with respect to his relationships with women, and also just a colossal narcissist. I mean, that was probably of a piece with how he treated other people. So not someone who I would expect to meet and think, well, he's really a great guy. Like I really like this guy.
Go camping with him. Yeah.
But his art obviously is. I mean, he defined more than a generation of in the visual arts, and the idea that we would. I'm not sure what we would have to discover about Picasso that would make it remotely tempting to say, all right, enough is enough. We got to close the Picasso Museum.
Yeah.
We got to just purge every.
But isn't there a potential hypocrisy there, which is basically, if you're a shitty artist, you better behave very well. And if you're a genius artist, then we can accept it. That does just morally feel a little hypocritical, right?
Well, no, but part of this is the advantage that Picasso now gets of being dead and having done his work in another time. So today, the Picasso today, whoever that is, if he's caught with an underage girl who he's beaten up, there's no question that's a career-wrecking phenomenon. And
it's probably a wrap on that.
And it should be, because we're at a standard now. The time of when these people lived is relevant. Like whatever he did then, which I think he was terrible, but in regard to the rest of the world at that time, he probably was sort of normal. That's probably how most people
or maybe like
conducted themselves.
a standard deviation.
Yeah,
above.
exactly. But we have evolved, so we have to apply that to art as well and science, probably.
Yeah. I mean, in honesty, I wish I had about 11 hours with you because there's so many things I have a tendency to not say the things that should go without saying. It's a bad habit of mine. I think you have a similar bad habit. Like, I'll start with the obvious. I absolutely adore you. I think you're brilliant. I enjoy so many of your arguments. But I've consumed several hundred hours of you.
Right.
I don't think anyone has this level of access to another person unless they're that person's therapist.
Yeah. The truth is my wife doesn't listen to my podcast. So you may know more about what I think on certain topics than she does.
Yeah, but these along the way, and let me also say, you're very polarizing, as you are well aware. And then I have defended you publicly different times, and then I've myself gotten
you get my hate mail,
yeah, I've gotten ensnared a little bit. And the thing that it frustrates me about that is I also think we are living in a paradigm where for me to like you, I'm condoning every single thing you say, which I totally reject. Right. I maybe agree with 30% of the things my wife says, and I fucking married her. Like, I am devoted my life to her, and I don't agree with most of what she says.
Right. Well, I hope to beat 30%.
Oh, you're way above 30%. But there are things that we differ on, as you would expect to differ. I mean, I don't know how anyone would just agree across the board with someone else. It seems very improbable.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we can take my foot out of your mouth and you can tell me the things you disagree about. And so we can spare you.
Well, but even before we do that, I just want to point out this thing that I just want to reject very publicly, which is like, I love Talib Kweli. You guys have had your issues. Well, there's parts of Talib's thing I totally love and agree with. There's other parts I think he's out to lunch on, and that's fine with me.
Well, let me just close the loop on that because, again, this is a pure confection of social media. I had no idea who he was.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And he's just started tweeting at me, attacking me
for
things I didn't believe, if I recall correctly.
Right.
And at a certain point, I just said, listen, you have no idea who I am or what I think. So like, what are you going on about? And he just kept doubling down. Mm-hmm. And I think Majid got involved there too. I think he was attacking.
I think that's how it started. Actually,
both Majid and I were getting attacked by him. Yeah. So that was just what he was doing that day on Twitter.
Sure.
I have I still don't know who he is really or what he thinks.
And I have no desire to rehash that whole thing again because I basically was taking your position when I had him
on our podcast.
Yeah, and he was
talked about it,
and he was awesome.
Okay.
And then I found myself kind of having to take your position, which I'm not as smart as you, so I doubt I executed the way you could have. But it did force me into like, defending all of your thoughts, which was just an interesting experiment in and of itself. But I do think I really buck up against this binary thing where on social media, if I vocally state that I like you, that now that's an invitation for you to find the most arcane thing that you've ever said and then tell me I need to defend it or I am somehow this person because I like you. Yeah. And I think we've kind of lost this a little bit of gray area where it's like you can totally like people and also disagree with parts of what they're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Do you find this at all? That like if you were to, I assume when you have someone like Jordan Peterson on, and I have to imagine there are a lot of points Jordan makes that you agree with.
Yeah, I mean, so we've had now 4 public debates. I mean, they're not billed as debates, but they definitely had the character of debates, at least for part of the time on stage. And so there's a lot we agree about, and there's a lot we disagree about. And it's just that there's a value in having a conversation with someone who you're not totally aligned with, and especially if it's a good faith conversation where this person is engaged in the same effort you are to get at the truth and to vet their own ideas, and so if those conversations have been very useful and fun. But clearest example I've noticed of late of the kind of thing you're talking about. Did you follow this thing on Twitter with Mark Duplass?
I'm friends with Mark. I have not heard about what happened.
Oh, well, this was big on Twitter. So
geez.
Call Mark and ask him what happened. So I've never met Mark, but
he's a lovely guy. Let me just start by saying that.
He seems fantastic, and he seems, I admire his work. But he went out on Twitter and he said, anyone who's, I don't have it verbatim, but the spirit of it was, for all of my liberal friends, if you want to hear a smart conservative who will challenge a lot of your ideas, follow Ben Shapiro.
Oh, okay.
And then, the liberal mob went into Ben Shapiro's, tweet record and pulled out the worst things he'd ever tweeted. And Ben has got some whoppers, which he hasn't deleted. He hasn't deleted. He didn't delete them because he doesn't want to call. It's like an admission of guilt. Yeah, he didn't want to call more attention to them or to make it seem nefarious that he was deleting them. But he has responded to. He's recanted them, and he's gone through every permutation of apologizing and contextualizing, depending as the case may be, the need for his past tweets and utterances. But he's got quite a paper trail, and so Mark got just savaged by his own audience, and I don't know if it was 24 hours later, but it was some very quick time frame, completely caved in and issued a public apology to, his audience. And it was the worst example of the mob winning. I mean, it was completely unnecessary because it should just be obvious that he doesn't agree with everything. I mean, I disagree with probably 80% of what Ben believes about on any given topic. Ben's an Orthodox Jew, we don't agree about much. He's a genuine conservative, but there should be no reputational cost to saying, hey, this guy, he's on the other team. Like, I'm not aligned with this guy, but he's interesting. You owe it to yourself to figure out the best version of your disagreement with this guy because he's smart, right?
Yes.
That should be totally valid in Mark's world. And what his fan base or the segment, and this is another problem with social media, is that who knows who he was actually hearing from? I mean, in his feed, he felt like there was a consensus. It was a tsunami of consensus.
Yes.
Saying you have just destroyed your career.
Yes.
Right. And yet, what was it? Was it 1,500 people telling him this? I don't.
Yeah, it was 1%.
Right. It's the most vocal, most.
And don't you think that's uniquely on the left, where we can't wait to eat one another? Like we're so excited to eat ourselves.
Yeah. This is an asymmetry that I've long bemoaned, which is that on the left does something that the right never does. It eats its own in a way that is totally, politically speaking, dysfunctional and masochistic. And you could see it in the juxtaposition of what happened to Al Franken and what didn't happen to Roy Moore.
Yes.
So Al Franken had
crystal clear.
Yeah, it's like whatever. Yeah, I'm not sure what should have happened to Al Franken. I mean, it seemed, but the juxtaposition with Roy Moore, who was not even bothering to deny that he, as a 30-year-old man, was sleeping with 14-year-old girls, right?
Right. He
was paying no penalty at all in Republican circles. Now, I'm not saying that the left should be more like that, but this is an asymmetry that the left will suffer under in any head-to-head contest against the right.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
So this is another thought I wanted to ask you, which is, you've debated a bunch of people, and maybe they're not framed as debates or they become debates or whatnot. I got to see you live talk with Steven Pinker.
Yeah, that hilariously, we were having sound problems in that theater, and you were adjusting the monitors. And so I can't tell you how many people were amazed that I've got, so that like celebrities are coming forward to adjust the equipment on stage.
Well, you were clearly getting feedback from the monitors that were pointed at, and I just couldn't sit there and do nothing. And I was like, this is so arrogant of me to get up and start adjusting these speakers, but someone has got to do it.
Yes.
If brave men, what is this saying?
Find a famous person who can climb on stage and adjust the sound equipment. Anyway, it was much appreciated, but it was hilarious.
But the one thing I'm curious about, because I'll hear episodes of yours and I'll think you fared one way or another. Sometimes I think you kind of decimate people. Sometimes I think people make better points on certain topics. But when I'm talking to fellow Sam Harris heads in my social circus, that's a great Freudian slip. You've, at least in my circle, kind of reached deity status where some people are just going to blindly go, regardless of where you end up. Some people are just there. They're going to be there. And I think it's, as an anthropologist, I'm not one because I don't practice, but someone who studied anthropology, there is this unavoidable attraction we have to alpha, or whoever we establish as alpha, and many people can occupy that position. But once you've kind of said that this is maybe one of my alphas, like my intellectual alpha, whatever it is, we do have a real capacity to kind of just go with people. Would you agree? I mean, it's part of what perpetuates religion and all these different things is.
Except, honestly, I mean, this may sound self-serving, but I feel like I have trained my audience to be incredibly fickle with respect to, they hold me to a standard that I notice many other people's audiences don't hold them to. And this asymmetry was brought out really clearly in my public conversations with Jordan Peterson, because there was a very much a kind of a team Jordan, team Sam vibe.
Yeah.
And so you could hear, like, in various moments, something one of us would say would segment out the audience, right? But I have an audience that is holding me to a standard of reasonableness and consistency and openness and honesty that I've trained them to hold me to. I mean, like, intellectual honesty. If I have a brand, it's that. Like, if I'm wrong, I need to admit it fast, right? And or if I appear wrong, I need to notice that and then figure out how this misperception is occurring and cancel it. Whereas someone like Jordan, amazingly, is functioning in a kind of quasi-cultic, quasi-religious mode where, and I'm not saying he's necessarily consciously engineering this, but he can just change his tone in a way which will get 1,000 people in the audience to applaud. And it has a kind of revivalist thing
there's
happening.
A rhythm to it.
And it's my audience, and this is something I love about my job, frankly, is that I am hearing from people who are holding me to a standard of coherence and consistency and reasonableness that I have just endlessly advertised that I want to be held to, and I want to hold myself to. So I have an amazing error correcting mechanism. So when I get something wrong, I mean, this is a real difference between me and my many public critics, and I would even say enemies in certain cases. I can probably count on one or two hands the people who have made kind of a cottage industry around misrepresenting my views as publicly as possible. I mean, there are people who will cut together audio from my podcast, making it sound like I'm saying the opposite of what I was actually saying in context, and release that as though this look what Sam look at this racist bastard. But then someone like Glenn Greenwald will tweet that out to his 1 million followers now, and so Glenn and I have gone back and forth fighting. But the difference between our audience is that he never apologizes for an error, right? He can consciously or not retweet something that's completely spurious about me, and we'll hear in his @mentions from thousands of people saying that this is the error you've made. He will never apologize, right?
Right.
If I get the slightest thing wrong about somebody like Glenn Greenwald, the slightest thing, it could be a hair's breadth between what I said he thinks and what he actually thinks, my fans notice and say, "Oh no, that's not. You have to apologize for that, right?"
Right.
And that's fine, because I think actually, misrepresenting somebody, even an enemy, is not fair game at all.
This is what I was going to commend you on, is that one of the ways I think you have a tremendous amount of integrity is that you never make straw man arguments. You don't misrepresent the other person's point to help perpetuate your own point. You do a very thorough job of understanding the other person's point of view, and you have a commitment to be able to make their argument to them as well as they would be able to make it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just, forget about the ethics of it. That's just good rhetoric. That's just good argumentation. If you want to persuade somebody of anything, you should take the best version of the the position you're arguing against. And it's incredibly helpful in a public debate to be able to restate the other person's position in a way that they sign off on. So you're not talking past each other at that point.
Right.
Like, yeah, now I know what we're...
Or and it also allows you to then go forward, which
Exactly.
is where you're hoping to go.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that what draws me to science in general is this notion of continual betterment, that ultimately everything's peer reviewed and no one's perfect, and that just through this process of criticism, it gets better and better and better. And that's what science has over the Bible, which is the Bible is just written. There's not going to be any updates, and there's no new chapters. No one's going to account for any of the things we learn. And so I just think anything you would hope to believe in or look to for answers should be something that implicitly is designed to evolve and continue to take on new information, right, and react to that.
Yeah.
So with that said, I've not heard, you probably correct yourself. I'm curious, are there any of these debates you can think of that you've lost? That's what I want to know.
There are certainly debates I've had where the person I was debating credibly felt that he won for his audience. This is often the mismatch between...
But if you left one of these and gone, fuck me, Stephen pointed out something really kind of profound and I need to reorient myself on this. Like, I'm going to give an example. So when you and Steven Pinker started debating AI,
right,
and you have a pretty outspoken fear of where this could potentially go, AI.
Yeah.
Stephen does not seem to have that fear.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah. And you guys went at it a bit and you guys were both ironically quoting like some of the same authors of things, but they were saying different things to both of you, which was very human.
Yeah.
But when he pointed out, in my opinion, that you're implanting into any of these AIs the fundamental thing that they don't have that all organisms have, which is just simply that all organisms innately are competing for space and against one another. And that in itself is just something that is so unique to an organism that we would have to so thoroughly design to put it into a machine that it just seems crazy that we would take the time to do that, because that would ensure our eventual annihilation. When he said that and that connected for me, I was like, yeah, that's right. That more than half of our hardwiring and programming is for us to have the highest fecundity rate. And that's just a weird hiccup of being an organism that a machine doesn't have. At any rate, when you were debating him on that, did you take that point and go like, oh yeah, that's something to think about?
No, well, that actually seems like a red herring to me. I don't remember that moment in that conversation, but my general feeling about Steve on this point is that he's not, for one reason or another, actually engaging the best points on the other side. I mean, he has a kind of straw man version. I mean, certainly in his book, it's an utter straw man version of the concern. I mean, the people who are concerned about this are not concerned about Terminator-style robots, suddenly becoming malicious, like where you have AI that was benign, but then it forms a hatred of humanity. And there's several people who are arch skeptics about this concern. Like this concern is so first of all, not only is it crazy to think we could ever build AI that wouldn't be aligned with our interests, we may never build a general AI at all. It's like this is the whole thing might be a pipe dream, right?
Sure,
so they're skeptical about the fundamental phenomenon of building this technology. I don't think those people are seriously engaging with the real arguments. And so there's no that wasn't a moment where I felt like but had it been there, I mean, there are many moments like that when I'm in dialogue with somebody.
Because I want you to be like science, you know. I want to see you evolve. I want to see you occasionally come on and admit that you were wrong. Like in that same live event, you were asked what is a something profound you've reversed your position on recently. And the one you could think of was death penalty, which I too have had my position reversed. But I thought that was maybe an easy one. And it's a clear one, and it was a big one. But I think I also said this recently on my podcast because it's a more recent one in response to that very question. So I had Neil Ferguson on the podcast. We're talking about Trump and
Neil is a historian and the husband of Ayaan Hirsi Ali. So,
okay.
So they're quite the power couple. So,
The Kristen Bellendak Shepherd of social justice and
exactly, of anti-theocracy and history in this case. But Neil's a powerhouse in his own right, and he's a historian. He's now got an appointment at the Hoover Institute. I guess he's kind of a libertarian. He's not a true conservative, but he's kind of, I guess, grouped right of center often on many of these questions. But he's certainly not a social conservative. But he's someone who is not. He's not a Trump supporter, but he's someone who he's kind of stayed out of the fray on this topic to some degree, certainly more than I have. And so when I got into my litany of reasons to think Trump was just the orange nightmare that we need to find some way to expunge, he said, "Well, have you ever thought about the counterfactual situation of just what if Hillary had won? Right? What would the world look like if Hillary were president?" And because everything you're saying about how bad it is that Trump is president seems to be predicated on your having formed a clear conception of what the world would be like if Hillary were president, and how much better a world that would be.
Right.
And he had many reasons to think that the world would be perhaps in some ways worse, right? And one of his reasons, which is a somewhat paranoid and cynical, but possibly true reason, which is that he thought that if Trump had lost the election to Hillary, the response of the Trump voters would have been something close to an actual insurrection. I mean, we would have had a real problem on our hands. It had because Trump would have said this is this was a fake result.
Rigged election.
It was totally. I mean, he was clearly preparing the ground for that response, and who knows what chaos would have ensued. And in Neil's view, which I'm not sure I agree with, but he views the election of Trump as kind of lancing a boil that really had to be lanced. Like this was a powder keg, and had Hillary been elected, it would have exploded. And so what was interesting to me is that all of my complaining about Trump was informed virtually not at all by engaging that exercise.
Right,
seriously
by comparing what
yes.
her potential presidency would be
Right.
versus his.
Right. And, all of the possible consequences. And so it definitely changed my view of our current situation. It's not that Trump looks any better to me, but it's just like I realized, wait a minute, there are many things I don't know. I'm being motivated by a presumption of knowledge that I don't actually have. And so it took a lot of the energy out of my concern.
Vitriol,
Yeah. And so that was a quote debate style point that landed, but this is just the way I am, which is, noticeably different from the way many people I engage are, which is that, and I've said this many times on my podcast, I don't want to be wrong for a moment longer than I need to be. Right. Like I've got, the moment
it is uniquely painful. I've been wrong on here and had to admit it. And if
it happens quickly enough, all people notice and all the other person notices is that they have the pleasure of educating you on a certain point. Like if you're wrong, it's like, oh, seriously, that's the way it is? Oh, wow. So I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah. And so if you can revise your worldview in real time under pressure, it doesn't have this character of, oh, fuck, that's embarrassing. I just, I dug in and now I just got slaughtered, right?
Yeah.
The world isn't what I thought it was. So now what is it?
So you don't have any fear that it retroactively, like for you to admit you're wrong publicly, you don't have any fear that it's your other arguments you've had now seem to lose credibility. Like, do you feel this responsibility to get it right all the time because it would inadvertently diminish all the other points you've made?
I feel a responsibility to be honest in every moment. Right. So if I'm wrong and don't see it, well, then that's not an error. I mean, it's an error, but it's not a violation of my core ethic, which is to be honest.
Right.
So if I don't see it, if I don't see it, I don't see it. Right.
Right.
Maybe there's something I don't understand. Undoubtedly, there are many things I don't understand. So I'm wrong about those things, or capable of being wrong about those things, because I'm just ignorant of certain facts, or I'm not logical enough, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The moment that I recognize that I'm in the presence of someone who's making a good point that is running against the grain of one of my stated beliefs, I mean, those dominoes begin to fall really quickly for me. It's and that is actually the pleasure of conversation for me. So and it's great to have a podcast where you can do this, where you can just invite some smart person on who's much more of an expert on any given topic you might be talking about than you are. I mean, there's some
that's very admirable, because you have a specialty, which is neuroscience, and really you're rarely talking to a fellow neuroscientist.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, it's very often, at least 90% of the time, I'm talking to someone who knows much more about something than I do, and that something is forming a significant part of the conversation. Right?
Yes, this is the position I currently find myself in. I'm at least in a lazy boy.
Yeah. But unlike a normal journalist or a normal interviewer whose job is just to kind of poke that person to kind of get out of the way, I am usually approaching it as a conversation where I'm going to take up at least 40% of the airtime, because I do have a dog in the fight. I have opinions about what we're talking about, and I want to pressure test those against someone who also has strong opinions, and for good reason, because this is really what we're talking about now is really in their wheelhouse. Yeah, and so it puts me on the line in a way that it's like my friend Joe Rogan, who's got a as you know, a huge podcast. We've talked to many of the same people. But at the end of the day, he can, if he puts his foot in his mouth, he can say, what the fuck? I'm just a comic, I'm not, I don't have to get this right, Yes. And so he's doing a high wire act, but there's a net, right? Yeah. I have a high wire act, and if I'm falling, it's just it's a different dynamic. But for me, there's nothing at stake as long as I am honest, right? So I'm either honestly wrong, or I recognize that I'm wrong, and then I change my commitment, more or less instantaneously.
Right. This could just be my own personal preference, but I'm always curious is if you think about epistemology, right? How we know what we know. I'm equally as interested in why I chose the things to learn about as I am the actual things I've learned about. And even when you and I had dinner, I was falsely seeing a parallel between you and I, because we're both children of divorce and stuff.
Right.
And
but
so
only one of us races motorcycles.
Yes. Well, that's true, but I'm focusing on the similarities. It would be fun for me to hear you question even why you're drawn to the things you're drawn to. Or is that something you do? Or do you think you have a handle on why you're clearly drawn to the empirical, right? There's some kind of comfort in that. Are you interested in why you're interested in things? I guess that's my question.
I don't do a lot of that. I guess the question I have asked is, why am I touching topics that predictably produce so much pain? And I don't need to do this, right? Why do a podcast on race? From any angle. What's in it for me now? But
there's no blue ribbon at the end of this for you.
But my last podcast was on race, right? Right. And I recognize the reason why I do it is it does come down to it's the coincidence of human suffering and conflict, and my sense that it's obviously unnecessary. So it's the unnecessary part of human misery that really motivates me to react or respond, whatever I can bring to that. To problem to help solve it.
You could have gotten a PhD in jazz history or Renaissance painters or any number of things there are to study in this world, and you were so clearly drawn to philosophy and then the brain. And I just wonder if you have any sense of from your childhood, why those things seemed like questions you needed to ask, or if they were comforting when you got that information, or if there's,
Well, ironically, it's a quasi-religious calling in the sense that the thing that brings many people to religion, or at least anchors them in their religious beliefs, is death and the reality of death, and having lost people and wanting to know what that's all about, and how can you prepare yourself emotionally for the inevitable losses that we'll all experience in life. And, I had a few people close to me die early. I mean, the one that really impacted me was a best friend died when I was 13. And then my father died when I was 17. But I had, I remember, I had dogs die early as a kid, and I had a grandfather die earlier than that. So I was like, death was something that punctuated my life for as long as I can remember. I actually I kind of made an independent study of religion, and known it at the time, but quasi New Age phenomenon and psychic phenomenon, and like just what happens after death? What is consciousness? What are we?
But so you had some incidents early where you were forced to recognize the vulnerability of being human. If your friend dies at 12 years old and your dad dies at 17, it's quite obvious that you're not, you have no assurance that you're just going to make it to 100 years old. That's pretty obvious. I guess you trained jujitsu, right? Mm. You had the podcast with the security specialist.
Gavin DeBecker.
Gavin DeBecker.
Well, I had a few. I had Gavin DeBecker. I had Scotty Reitz, who's a former SWAT operator,
right?
And then I had Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL. So I had a few.
So for me, I'm not as interested in security because I just don't really have a fear of that stuff, for right or wrong. It's just of the many weird proclivities of my personality, I'm just in general not very fearful.
Right.
Do you think in general you're fearful, as just your worldview is a little fearful?
I wouldn't.
You'd call it realistic, I'm sure, but that would be the trap.
Fear is not the emotion that I experience that causes me to pay attention to any of these things or do any of the things that like to train jujitsu. So training, first of all, training jujitsu is just flat out fun and addictive. I mean, it's like,
right.
once you start doing it, it is the most addictive sport I've ever encountered. So it's like fear is the last thing from your mind when you're training jujitsu. But even like you're working with firearms, it becomes a kind of once you go through the down the rabbit hole and having decided, well, this is worth your attention. Mm-hmm. Then it becomes just like a guilty pleasure. It's like sure. I imagine it's something like riding motorcycles or whatever. I mean, let's say riding motorcycles. Like one way to get into it was, there are many safety situations where being able to ride a motorcycle could save your life, right? Yeah. Like in some end of the world phenomenon, like you're going to want to know how to ride a motorcycle.
Sure.
So let's say you believe that, and then you get into it. Well, then all of a sudden, riding motorcycles presumably is hugely fun, and you're not motivated by fear while doing that.
That's a great example. So riding motorcycles, I love it. It's a huge part of my life. It has been for 30 plus years.
Right.
I also have the awareness that I, as a child, was trying to do anything that could establish me as manly. That was just one of many things. I would jump off the roof. I would jump off of tall bridges. I would fight other dudes. Right. I was in constant search of approval from my peers that I was manly. And I do believe that's because I just didn't have a dad around. There was no dad to go like, well done, son, you really did it. And so I was just endlessly looking for that approval from my male peers. And the way you won glory where I'm from is you fucking jumped a motorcycle over a bonfire, So right. By God, I was going to do that. Or you punched the dude at the bar who called your girlfriend a bitch. Like these are the things I did. So it's working on two levels. I very much enjoy it. I love it. I could tell you a million reasons why it is meditation. If I go to the track on a motorcycle, it's the one place in my life that for 30 minutes, I absolutely can't afford to have another thought other than the next turn and braking and accelerating. If I have another thought, I will crash.
Right.
And so that in itself is meditative and I enjoy it. But if I'm just being honest about what got me into it, it was one of many ways to establish my manliness. And I have a neuroses like any human being, and it's one of many,
Yeah. Well, so there is something similar for me there in that, also having been raised by a single mom, there's nothing ever happened to impress this on me, but I think feeling like there wasn't a man in the house,
right?
And feeling that there's some reality of vulnerability, you have a mom who is out having to function out in the world with her young son. At a certain point, the young son can perceive the world to be a hostile place, or perceive the stress in his mother, when she doesn't feel safe. And and we traveled, and I mean, she was, by my lights now as a parent, incredibly brave in how she took me out in the world. We went to Africa, we went to China when it just opened up. I mean, we're like,
It's pretty baller.
Yeah, I mean, she
for
is
a single mom.
and she had never, she didn't have a history of having traveled, as a young person. So she just wanted to travel for the first time in her life, and she had an 8-year-old kid or a 9-year-old kid with her, who she had to take, and those are fantastic experiences. But the reality is I'm a young boy in a world where men are noticing my mom as a single woman, right?
Yeah.
So
Me too. I hated when my mom wore tank tops because she had big boobs. I was like, geez, Louise, I can see guys are looking at my mom's boobs.
So I don't have explicit memories of that, but I'm sure that happened.
They happened.
So I'm sure that got in there, but then it's just a matter of having thought through these admittedly somewhat rare circumstances, but the truth is they're not all that rare. I mean, I feel pretty rational in the degree to which I prioritize certain risks. For instance, or like most people, I have some nascent anxiety around flying. Right? So like if you put me on an airplane and there's any significant turbulence, part of my brain is saying, okay, is this the moment where it all ends? But the reality is that flying is so safe that it is irrational to worry about dying in a plane crash.
Totally.
And it is totally rational to worry about dying while texting while driving, and yet almost nobody worries about that, right? But
that's right. Or of heart disease or cancer or
exactly.
any number of the big killers.
Yeah. And so the things I worry about are fairly in proportion to the actual risk insofar as I understand these risks. Again, the psychology isn't fear in the sense that it's like putting when you put your helmet on to ride your motorcycle, when I put my seatbelt on in my car, it's not fear that is inspiring that move. It's just an awareness that the difference between getting into an accident with the seatbelt on or off is enormous, right? So it's worth putting it on.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with locking my doors at night. It's like I could just leave the front door open, but there's a reason to lock it, and yet implementing that is not at each moment driven by this feeling of anxiety. At least, I'm certainly not aware of it being.
Have you ever had psychotherapy?
I did, but a long time ago.
Okay. Did you like it?
Do you recommend it at this point for me?
No, I'm endlessly curious why I'm doing anything I'm doing. I don't think I'm just randomly doing anything. I mean, it feels like I am. I'm responding to a sensation of hunger or horniness or all these things, but way lower than that. I am usually the victim of something I'm overcoming from my childhood. I think it's kind of inescapable.
With respect to what I pay attention to, like on my podcast or what I write about, that's largely driven by there's two filters. Like, is it interesting and is it consequential? And sometimes just pure interest wins and sometimes just pure consequence. This is sort of boring, but there's no way around it. Let's talk about how, bad social media is or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's the convergence of those two things where this is actually ethically or intellectually interesting, and it's also either hugely consequential now or it will be. It's like AI is a great example there. It's like I think it stands a chance of being an enormous problem if we do it badly. And it's just very cool to think about too. And
when you did you read Homo Deus the second? Yeah. When he starts talking about what your phone could potentially do is it's measuring your cortisol level and your blood sugar, and you're about to walk into a meeting and it tells you don't speak in this meeting because the last time you did when your levels were this high, you got reprimanded. Like that kind of being able to set a goal for yourself. That's basically setting a goal for your narrative self. That's going to be at odds with your experiential self is fucking fascinating. And what will the device prioritize, your narrative self or your experiential self? That is a fascinating thought experiment, I think.
Yeah, and it's one that we need to run for ourselves, even in the absence of that technology.
Absolutely.
So much of what we do is this negotiation between what it's like as a matter of process to do those things and the payoff of being able to retrospectively say, we're satisfied.
Feel
to
good
have
or
done
bad
that
about
thing.
it. Yeah. It's in my experience on planet Earth, rarely do those things meet peacefully. Almost everything I enjoy doing is something that my narrative self was not going to be proud of
Right.
that night.
That's the tragedy of the human condition.
So, in keeping with what we're talking about with fear, so I too share your critique of Islamists. You know, I have a fear of that. But I also would recognize, and I've heard you already admit to this, but I'm going to take you further down that path, is crazy high improbability of ever being the victim of a terrorist attack in the United States.
Yes, except, I mean, there's one caveat there. Yes, it is true to say that very few people are dying in the United States from terrorism.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, really tiny, less than lightning.
Yeah, Islamist or otherwise, right?
Yeah.
But it is also true to say that there are people waking up every day trying to figure out how to get their hands on nuclear material or biological weaponry so as to bring off an attack that is orders of magnitude bigger than anything we've ever seen, right?
Yes, that's certainly true. But I think the more compelling argument you've made is that it's not really about the terrorist attack. It's our response to the terrorist attack. So the last time we had a significant one, 9/11, we invaded Iraq and we invaded Afghanistan, and we've spent $1.5 trillion on those endeavors. And so the reason it's so paramount, this issue, is that our appetite to overreact is so large that that's what we're really trying to alleviate or avoid.
Yeah, and we have to price that in, because I think that overreaction is inevitable, and some of it is not. Some of it's just like what happens to the stock market when the next 9/11 hits,
right?
You know, like what global financial crisis could that precipitate?
And I agree with you on both those points. But my question to you is, if that's true, and I agree it is, then why not make the focus of your work confronting the disease and not the symptoms? So the disease is human overreaction, which I think is...
Well, no, there's two diseases, because the other disease is the fact that hundreds of millions of people at a minimum think that you should be killed for leaving the faith. I mean, to take Islamism as this one problem, right? So, you know, and I know the sorts of people who are now threatened with death for having left the faith, right? So like this is a human rights concern that is so much bigger than the kinds of legitimate concerns we have in our society, where we're just not getting it right in terms of, you know, political equality between men and women, or, you know, transgender issues, or like all of that stuff. Fine, let's worry about that too. But I know people who are in hiding for saying that for being gay, or for saying they doubt the existence of God. And you know, this is just on a human rights level and kind of a freedom of speech level.
A traditionally liberal.
Yeah, this is just, as the liberal in me finds this intolerable. The feminist in me, who's actually concerned about the plight of women, you know, if I go down the list of, you know, like, let's prioritize this. Well, you know, the fact that 98% of girls in Somalia are still getting clitorectomies, right? And knowing the details of what that's like.
We called it female mutilation when we were in anthropology.
Well, just don't call it female circumcision, because that gives people the sense that it's somehow equivalent to male circumcision. And so, you know, how big a problem is that?
And really quick, let's just say that the difference being is that the ultimate goal of male circumcision, when it was enacted, was cleanliness. And the true motivation behind a clitorectomy is to deny a woman pleasure during sex.
Yeah, and
those are different goals, right?
Yes, and the details of the procedure and the health ramifications, all of it is just, I mean, is just, you're misled by a term to call them both circumcision.
Yeah,
you know. So if you're actually concerned about women, I can't see how, you know, having battery acid thrown in the faces of girls whose crime is just trying to go to school in Afghanistan, like how that isn't just so important to focus on. It is a kind of, just coming back to the terrorism angle, there are two problems. There's our potential overreaction to any human engineered act of terrorism. But then there's just this clash of worldviews, which has just millions of casualties, and it's clear what the right side of history is here. You know, like we don't have to debate whether girls should be allowed to learn to read anymore.
But yeah, how does one focus energy and confront this irrational overreaction that we all have? Because it's kind of centered in this notion, right, of blame. Was it Paul Bloom who was talking about it? Who was talking about when you can, if you're just the victim of an accident, medical malpractice versus the guy who was fake giving people cancer to treat them, it's the results are the same. Yeah, because we've attached blame to it.
Betrayal bias is what
betrayal bias.
Yeah.
Because if we as a country were just about alleviating as many untimely deaths as possible, we would start going through the list. If we were allocating resources, and this includes our military and everything else, right? We would start with cancer, or we'd go to heart disease. If we truly were honest about wanting to prevent death, we would confront and attack and allocate resources to about 6,000 things before we got to many of the things we're most upset about.
Yeah, except certain things trouble us more than mere death. I mean, it's not necessarily wrong to be troubled by them. So, to have someone in your life die of heart disease suddenly is one thing. To have them run over by a car is another thing. To have them raped and tortured and then murdered is another thing. Now, the net result is the same. They're no longer here,
right?
And you're now deprived of their presence in your life quite suddenly and unexpectedly. But there's a surrounding set of facts that, for better or worse, changes the level of human suffering in response to that loss. And in certain cases, I would agree, it is starkly irrational. And if you could just sort of change the way you think about it, well, then, you'd feel better, and everyone would feel better.
Well, maybe we wouldn't be allocating 33 cents on every dollar to the military.
Right.
Bigger than the next 11 militaries combined. It seems a little disproportionate to me.
I have a real quick thing to say about the radicalism conversation. I don't think anyone would disagree with the absurdity and craziness and horror that is happening in all of those places. But don't you think that just saying that over and over again without solutions is not all that helpful? Like when you had Fareed Zakaria on, I feel like he was really kind of saying that, like, education.
But that was an example of a kind of an illegitimate move he made. I mean, he sort of played. It wasn't the race card, but it was kind of the quasi race and culture card. I mean, basically, he said, "Listen, I come from the community.
Sure.
I'm a Muslim. You're not. I know that what you're doing is counterproductive, right? And it's a trump card he could play with me, which he can't play with Maajid Nawaz."
Right.
And Maajid and I are totally aligned on this. So that it was kind of an illegitimate move because it wasn't certainly not an argument I take seriously. But it's just there clearly is a path forward, and it's the path forward that every other religion has been forced to take, which is to moderate its crazy medieval views under pressure from secular, humanistic, scientific, democratic, liberal values. And so,
but I don't think you're representing his position super fairly, because I listened to that and I loved that thing. And to me, I heard you both saying the exact same thing, which is that this change has to be led by moderate Muslims. You were very insistent that for that to happen, we must first start with acknowledging all of the asinine parts of the scripture. And that it first needs to be debunked, right? Or acknowledge that, let's say, jihad is bad or whatever. That you were pretty, I think, dug into this notion that, no, that needs to be a part of how all this happens. And I think he was saying that's not going to be helpful to them. You coming in and pointing out all the errors in their thinking isn't actually going to be the solution. It's going to be the moderates who have already become a little more moderate, living as an example and then intervening. So I just
So I mean, because again, I have the evidence. There's two things. One is I acknowledged, and I'm sure I acknowledged to Fareed, that there are different roles to play here. Like my role is not to be, not to parachute down into Islamabad and start talking. Right?
You don't think that will go well?
Yes. I'm not tempted to try.
Put your jujitsu to the test.
My fear-based worldview suggests that it would be a bad experiment. I see the evidence. I mean, there are people who essentially jihadists who are now atheists because they were watching my YouTube videos. Like, so there are people who definitely who have come out because of me or people like me, Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins. But I'd be the first to say that that's not the normal use case, right? And the normal case is something that's far safer and just a little bit more reasonable, taking the rough edges off of
being within eyesight of Qatar or Dubai. Those are the things to me that seem like how that happens.
Well, there's that too, but there's just the effect of modernity. But again, that's a two-edged sword, because modernity is also advertising its moral and spiritual bankruptcy as well in every moment. So you're getting this pendulum swing away from, all the ways in which people have trivialized human life back into a more fundamentalist adherence to not just Islam, but every kind of religious faith. Yeah, for as many people who are being converted by how much better life is getting materially and socially in, the West, say, or in, a place like Dubai compared to a place like Afghanistan. Yeah. There are many people who are reacting against the superficiality of that, the mere materialism of that, and finding it necessary to be more doctrinaire and more dogmatic.
Okay. The last thing I want to say is there was a really interesting moment when you interviewed Eric Weinstein, where he was kind of going through the fact that he had a pretty traditional Orthodox Jewish wedding, I believe. And he himself is self-professed atheist, right? And you were kind of like questioning that. And he just simply said to you, well, that's because you, Sam, would put truth at the number one principle in your life. Like, truth is the number one guiding light in your life. What was profound about that observation to me was simply, I too put that. I fetishize the truth. I want some kind of certainty. And it just occurred to me, oh, wow, it is a choice you make. And you could put any number of things in the number one slot, right, that you're trying to service in your life. It could be truth. It could be compassion. It could be love. It could be any number of things. And I was thinking, you're married. You've stayed married, which leads me to believe there has to be many times in your real life where it's on the table for you to point out that that's inaccurate, what she said, that that's not actually what happened on the way to get groceries. But you smartly go, that's not going to be my priority right now. My priority is going to be comforting my partner, who I did something that triggered some emotional thing in her or a fear. And my job in this moment is to throw away the facts and get to what's important, which is comforting my partner, which I've agreed to do. Does that happen, or you don't ever budge on that? You go, no, I did not run the stop sign. Yeah. I can tell you why I stopped for 2 seconds.
Well, I mean, I'm a little more of a stickler for truth than that. But yeah, I mean, so this is something I get into in my book, Lying, and so it's not something that truth is paramount for me. I mean, it's close to that, but it's more that honesty is paramount. And sometimes the honest truth is that you don't know something, right? Yeah. Or your state of knowledge is like essentially a coin toss. You have a 50% sense that it's a 50% likelihood that something's true or false, say. So it's to honestly represent one's knowledge of the world to oneself and to others is my default position. But as you rightly point out, there are cases where you feel like you have to pick your battles, or there's no reason to go there, right? There's no, like, there's some
or it's about being you're honest about your objective, which is to be a good partner to somebody.
Yeah. But I find that honesty and the truth, insofar as you can apprehend it, tends to be so useful that there's rarely much tension between being honest and being good, or being or supportive or compassionate or a good friend. Now, it's not that I'm never in that situation, but once honesty becomes your kind of master value, right, and everyone in your life knows it, then you sort of train everyone in your life to know what to expect from you, right? Like you're the guy. Like, people don't often ask me what I think unless they actually want to know what I think.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, and they're
Like, do you like my overalls?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. I very much like them on you. Yeah.
Okay.
Occasionally I encounter a mismatch between like someone else's expectation of what, honest communication is like and my own, like the person doesn't know me very well, or they, or someone has asked for creative feedback on something and I start to give it and I realize, okay, wait a minute, this person really just wanted to be told that their thing was great.
Yeah, they want a cheerleader.
Yeah,
not
they just
editor.
didn't. We're just not on the same page. But rarely is that the case for me, and it's amazing how clarifying of one's life it is to have advertised to yourself and to the world that that's the way it's going to be.
But I think we'd both agree your obligation to the colleague who wants your input on a paper versus your covenant you've entered with this human being to emotionally support each other and make each other feel safe.
Right.
That the stakes of that are much higher, and they do require, just in my own case, they definitely require, my wife will go, you never offer to do blank. And in my mind, I'm like, well, no, Wednesday I did.
Right.
And then I think Sunday I remember I did. And I can start building a pretty defendable case that she's just erroneous in this claim.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so tempting. I want to do it.
No, I get tempted by that.
But it doesn't yield what I'm ultimately trying to achieve, which is I should be always trying to make this human I've committed to be with feel as safe and taken care of as possible, at the expense quite often of reality.
Not necessarily at the expense of reality, because it's not that you're agreeing that her representation is true necessarily. You could just move on.
I fast forward to, honey,
what can I do now?
So happy to help more.
Yeah.
I sometimes I don't think about it. So if you could meet me halfway and just remind me, I'd love to help you get out the door. Like, let me do that and then help me meet those needs. Right.
Yeah. But that falls for me under the sort of the picking the battles rubric, where it's not important at that moment to get the record straight.
Correct.
It's just like, well, what can I do? What can I do now to solve this problem?
And I would argue
right
the
now?
emotional truth is as important as the historic record truth, the archaeological record, right? It is as important.
But I don't see any dishonesty entailed there. What would be dishonest is to say, "Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. I didn't do those things. All the while, I believe I did those things, and you're delusional." Right.
Right.
That introduces a kind of distance. Like you're managing the person as though they're not a rational actor, or they're not on the same team.
And this is at the core of, I think, your frustration with mankind is that we are irrational, and the expectation that we'll be rational is actually antithetical to what we are. It doesn't exist. So none of it's logical. None of it's real.
No, I'm not saying that we're always motivated by reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are all kinds of things that are that we have many drives that are not any kind of chain of reasoning, and it's hard to reason us out of them. But we can rationally understand what's going on and navigate around all of that.
Yeah,
So
where I'm trying to lead you is that I do think this paradigm that exists, I think there are times that you could extend that out to some of the debates you're in. Do you feel like some of these chasms that exist that we just can't cross, I do think some of it's going to be illogical and irrational because it's about making other humans feel safe.
Yeah, I don't think the bearded maniacs who are throwing battery acid in the faces of young girls need to feel safe. I think they need to feel terrified that their worldview is going to be canceled, because it will be, because we have enough of a consensus that they're barbarians, right? We need to, there are certain people who will only respond to the starkest possible encounter of not an inch further.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the people who are threatening to,
but that solution is just so downstream. That solution is treating the symptom and not trying to figure out why on earth would someone be recruited in the first place.
Well, no, but that's actually not the symptom. It is the actual, it's the ideas. It's the idea about the price we're paying for the certainty of paradise. right? I mean, this is what's again, back to where we started. It's not that these are bad people. It's worse than that. Most of these people are good people or normal people. Like, I don't.
Well, hold on. No, I don't think the Americans that have been recruited over here and have fucking flown to join ISIS to suggest that they aren't the victim of some kind of emotional damage as kids. I find hard to believe.
Oh, okay, but then you got to work harder because people do extreme.
I prayed
things.
you'd say that to me. Okay,
I spent 2 years in silence in my 20s. Now, not all at once, in 3-month increments, 1 month increments. But of all the things I could have been doing, right, I was on silent retreat.
Yeah, it was almost as radical as joining ISIS, by the way.
Well, but for different ideas. Like, I know when I look at someone like John Walker Lind, the so-called American Taliban, he was the first American who we noticed. Okay. Right after 9/11.
He was in the basement of his.
Yeah. He got caught and wounded. He's now in prison. And I think he's completely unrepentant. I think he's just as fundamentalist as he ever was. He's been in prison for whatever it is, 14 years or so. When I looked at him and I got his backstory, and he went to these countries. I think he started in Saudi Arabia. I forget how he got to Afghanistan, but maybe he was in Pakistan. But he learned Arabic, and he just got totally immersed, hook, line, and sinker in this Muslim religiosity that, based on just a sincere conviction, that this was the true account of the world.
But really quick, do you think that guy felt included in his group? Do you think he was on the football team and felt like he had an identity that was shared with many around him? Or do you think
I forget about his backstory there, but
I just have to imagine
it is totally possible to be the quarterback of the football team and then to join ISIS.
Really?
Totally. I mean, I was a very social, very reasonably self-actualized guy. Had lots of friends, lots of intellectual interests. I dropped out of Stanford and decided there is something much deeper here that I have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And I don't regret any of it, but it could have been something that I would now regret. It could have been fundamentalist Islam, right? Had I believed, that the Quran was the perfect document.
Where you and I diverge is, I do think there's probably innumerable reasons, but I think some people are susceptible to it or not.
Well, I mean, so obviously the human mind is very complicated, and it's hard to find happiness in this world, whatever your circumstance. Take it out of the context of jihadism or religious extremism. You just take something like the opioid crisis, right? Well, it's like you can be Prince and have a problem with drugs, and you can be somebody who has no prospects in life and have a problem with drugs.
Addiction's very egalitarian in that way.
Yeah, but you could make the argument that as life gets better and better, as more people have a life like you and I are currently enjoying, well, then the temptation to become an addict must go down. Right. Well, maybe it goes down a lot, by half, say, but still it's possible to basically have everything and have your life run off the rails with addiction.
Yeah. And we got to be clear what metrics we're using to evaluate life getting better. Right. So we're using money, education.
You've got money, you've got education, you've got physical health, you've got people around you who love you and are worried about you. I mean, it's just, but you could be Anthony Bourdain, who's got, but from the outside, a great life, right? He's doing exactly what he wants. He's got a career that everyone envies, right? Like, what could be more fun than doing what he's doing?
Yeah.
Provided you like to travel. And then he hangs himself, right? And then you're left with this absolute refutation of the apparent goodness of his life. I mean, he was even into jujitsu, right? He was like a total jujitsu addict, right? Like that was the coolest thing to see.
Well, he was an addict, period. So but a lot of those things answer themselves,
right? But he's like 60 years old. He's getting into the most fun sport ever. I had never met him, but we had friends in common, and so I'm looking at this from afar, thinking, man, that's just so cool that this guy is, he's older than me. He's got, but apparently, way more energy and great luck with his health, and then he kills himself. And so that's a sign that there is considerable distance still for a human mind to be, profoundly unfulfilled even when basically all the other boxes are checked.
And yes, and if you had listened to this podcast a lot, that is the theme. So I get to talk with a lot of people who are rich and famous, and my first question is generally, you're rich and famous. Did it cure all the things you thought it would cure?
Right.
And almost across the board, it didn't, and it didn't do it for me. So then the question is, what does make you feel good? It's counterintuitive, the things.
So imagine what it would be like for you and all of your rich and famous and successful and
Good
looking guests who should be happy to be fully immersed in a culture that has an answer for all of that remaining existential angst.
Crises. Yeah.
So we have to win this war of ideas. We cannot give an inch on this. And it's not racism, certainly, to be holding the line here. It's actually the only rational, compassionate response to the suffering of millions of people who are living in contexts where their lives are threatened every day by the theocrats around them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
well, I've kept you for almost an entire day,
Yes.
which is you think you made all of our.
this is the way it is on a podcast.
Yeah. Well, Sam, you really have made us happy by coming in. You've been the object of our desire since we started, and I appreciate it.
Pleasure to do it.
All right. Hello. Is this Jameson? Jameson, I think you're there, and I want to say on behalf of Monica and I that we're so grateful you bought a left-handed mug, and we would very much love to pass on your generosity to a foundation or a charity that you believe in. Is there something, an issue that you care about that we can help with?
I was hoping you could donate to the Open Medicine Foundation.
Open Medicine Foundation. And what do they do?
Well, I have a chronic illness called MECFS, and they do a lot of research for that. They raise funding because it's really underfunded.
And what kind of symptoms do you have with your condition?
Well, speaking is difficult, as you can probably tell. Yeah, and I'm doing better now. I couldn't eat solid food for about a year and a half.
Oof.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. And some people are worse than I am. They're they have to be on like feeding tubes, and they can't speak at all. Small stuff is taxing. I need a lot of help.
And so do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
Oh, no idea. Yours has been a really wonderful distraction for me. Just gives me a little bit of escape, and I just don't sleep well at all. So, I noticed that you guys usually post it at like 2 a.m. or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm usually awake right when it posts.
You might be our first
listener?
Jameson's our very first listener. Now, the last question I want to ask you before we go. Your name is Jameson. Is your father an alcoholic? Does he love whiskey?
It's interesting. It's spelled different.
Oh, okay.
It's not spelled like. So I'm actually named after a road, but my dad actually he was an alcoholic. He's been sober for I think like 30 years or something like that.
Oh wow, we have that in common.
Yeah. Is it okay if I talk about the open medicine a little bit?
Of
Please
course.
do. Yeah.
They work to raise money for funding, and they work with Stanford a lot and UC San Diego, and so they're trying to get more research for Lyme disease and MECFS, which is the main one that I was talking about, and other like sort of fibromyalgia and stuff like that. And
are these all autoimmune diseases in a way?
MECFS is pretty mysterious. Studies have shown that it affects energy at the cellular level. So it kind of, something is attacking the mitochondria. There's some inflammation markers that are pretty high. And
well, as someone with arthritis, I find inflammation really sexy, as you know. So I just always want to know if I've got like a fellow sexy brother out there with inflammation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it affects like 24 million people around the world. So it's some, and it's obviously very, very personal for me. So I really would like to, raise awareness, and people can donate. Actually, you know what I was going to mention? If they donate before the 27th, donations are tripled. So,
that someone's matching donations.
Yeah, anonymous donors. So, if you guys donate that 2,000 from the mug, that'll be 6,000.
Oh, great.
Fantastic! We will do that before November 27th.
For November 27th. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, great.
So you can go to omf.ngo, and that's where you can do it.
omf.ngo?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Jameson, thank you so much for your very, very generous contribution, and we will definitely pass that money on, and hopefully that'll then raise $6,000, and I'll urge everyone to go to omf.ngo and donate. And thanks for opening my eyes to MECSS.
If you want to read more about it, I have an essay in the New York Times. I'm kind of shed some light on it too.
Okay, great. And what's the name of that article in the New York Times?
It's for the Modern Love column. It's called "Love Means Never Having to Say Anything."
Well, wonderful. Jameson, thank you so much, and thanks for listening to the show. We'll try to distract you for years to come.
All right.
Okay.
You guys are the best. Thanks.
And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman. We can fax if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. But if your friends aren't facts, and if they don't check, then they're no friends of mine.
Great.
Thank you.
I like that.
Well, I only had the title.
Yeah. So you had to do some improv.
Some quick thinking on my feet. So if it doesn't really make sense or add up, don't think about it too much. Just enjoy the melody. And Ruthie Palmer suggested it on Twitter.
Thanks, Ruthie.
Thanks, Ruthie. She's sandwiched between, I take screen grabs of the tweets so I can like bring them up. Mm-hmm. And she's sandwiched between all these pictures of cars I like.
What is it exactly?
Well, it's a 2012 Ferrari FF. It's called an FF, and I'm not a big Ferrari guy, but they made a station wagon. You know how much I love station wagons. I mean, it's really a shooting break. Wow. Not to bore everyone automotively, but it's just so silly looking. And you know, you have
two station wagons.
I know.
And you need more.
Before I die, I hope to have at least 10 station wagons.
10?
That's stupid. 7. I want one for every day of the week.
Okay, but you also have other cars that aren't station wagons that you also drive.
Yeah, but some days, like some weeks have 8 days, like a leap year, you know?
Yeah, no. Double F, that is...
What do you think it stands for?
Big boobs.
The Ferrari.
Really big
Fuck
breasts.
Fest. Oh, yeah, double F would be a bra size.
Yeah, and a large one.
I think it stands for Ferrari Fuck Fest because presumably you can fold these rear seats down because it's got a hatchback like a station wagon. And why else did they make it if not for coitus in the back? Italians are very spicy people.
They are. They embrace sexual activity.
Feisty. That's what I wanted to say. I mean, Rob, what a bone kill.
We don't need
Rob,
to know
I know
that.
what it really stands about. How dare Rob try to present a fact about a car? I mean, there's a lot of topics that you could educate me on, but let me tell you right now, Ferrari's not one of them. Wobby wob. You guys, I'm so sorry, armchairies.
Oh, what I was going to say is I found a car that I want.
Really? I've been wanting this to happen.
I saw it on Comedians in Cars, getting coffee.
Yeah, what was it?
I don't know. I thought you'd remember. 'Cause you
Oh,
remember
I do
cars.
remember. It was a Mercedes 300 Gullwing.
Had gullwing doors.
Yeah, I want to say it's like either 58, 59, somewhere in there. It's a very old Mercedes, very, very rare Mercedes. Sexy doors that open up, gull wing like a seagull.
Very sexy.
Of all
white.
White.
Actually, I would say cream. Like my current car is white. This was not that. This was a beautiful eggshell.
You know what my favorite white is on my dune buggy is Wimbledon white, which was made popular on the Ford Broncos of the 70s. It was so creamy.
Yeah, I like a creamy white.
A nice cream-based white.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That car is gorgeous.
I want one.
I'll buy you one.
You will?
Yeah, if this
They're like $1
podcast
million,
goes 10
right?
years, I'll buy you one.
Okay, great.
Like people get a watch on the 10th anniversary of their job.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy you $1.5 million Mercedes. Wouldn't you be nervous driving that car?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Could I even drive it?
What about putting it in your living room? Just to look at the thing.
Oh,
That's
as
my
a decor?
Mm-hmm. As accoutrement. That's my fantasy is that Belle would let me park our cars inside the house.
Sure.
I'd way rather stare at those than like a piece of an oil painting,
Yeah.
an impressionist. But if someone in the audience has a Ferrari FF and they want to sell it to me for 60 cents on the dollar, let's talk.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So Sam.
Sam Harris.
Yeah.
Exhausting fact check.
What a doozy. I mean, I guess I'll tell our listeners, like, we could talk for 7 hours in this fact check about stuff that was said.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna do that. I picked a few things that we can talk about that I thought maybe needed saying after listening. There's a lot of maybe could be considered controversial opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to pick apart every single one of those.
Okay.
So, okay, well, first you said 4 out of 5 guests of ours, we cite Sam.
Mm-hmm. Exaggeration.
I didn't look.
Yeah, that's an exaggeration.
I think it's probably an exaggeration. At the beginning, yes. I think we've tapered off a little bit because we also, our listeners have heard about all these people.
Yeah, but what's interesting is even when I'm not actually saying Sam, but I'm talking about something Paul Bloom wrote about empathy, or I'm talking about something Brett Weinstein said, or I'm talking about even Yuval Harari. They came from his podcast, you know? So even if I don't say Sam and I just go, oh, have you heard this Paul Bloom thing?
Yeah.
Really, I'm talking, I got that from Sam's podcast.
That is true. Okay. So he mentions honor killings, and he said, I don't actually know what he said the percentage was, or maybe he just said a high percentage of Islam believes that honor killings are okay. And the Washington Post and Pew in 2013 did a survey. And in 14 of the 23 countries where the question was asked, at least half say honor killings are never justified when a woman stands accused. Similarly, at least half in 15 of 23 countries say honor killings of accused men are never justified. In only 2 countries, Afghanistan and Iraq, do majorities say honor killings of women are often or sometimes justified.
But what's interesting is it almost declares your position on this topic, even the way that was just said, which is to say they found that half of people don't believe in honor killings. You could also then say half of people believe in honor killings. Mm-hmm. Which is very
that's the rest of it, though. That's what it's saying. And it's pointing out the countries in which the majority does.
Mm-hmm. But even if half of a population believes that, that's very troubling.
Of a country, yeah, it is. These are also my takeaway from this when I looked at the whole list was, the countries, the more modern countries have a small number. The really troubled, war-ridden countries have a high number. Mm-hmm. That to me was clear in looking at that list. That was my takeaway. I mean, it's scary and bad. It's terrible.
Incredibly. I guess I think this is what gets frustrating for me in these conversations, and probably for other people, is, and I think it's largely what Sam gets frustrated with, is you have to acknowledge this large amount of people that have these views. Like, that's just a statistical fact. Now, the more important thing that no one ever gets to, it's like the left wants to deny. The left's big message is, well, the vast majority of Muslims are peaceful and wonderful. And that's true. Absolutely. But then you read stuff like this, and you have to acknowledge, well, a hefty amount of people do believe in honor killings. That's troubling. That's a big concern. Now, the way more important conversation, it's hard to even get past that, is why. And that's what you're saying. Well, these are very impoverished, war-ridden countries.
Yeah.
And the real debate should be about why and how on earth do we change this.
Right. That's, yeah.
But I think sometimes the conversation can't even get to that point because the left wants to kind of ignore all that stuff. And I think it gets just bogged down in the denial that there's a significant amount of people on the planet that believe in jihad.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, in my experience and opinion, I don't know any person on the left who doesn't believe in jihad and doesn't believe in ISIS and terrorism. But I think they are more able to see the reasoning as to why there's extremism.
Yeah, the causality.
And I think people who are just fully operating through fear don't think about that. They don't think about the real reason it's happening. They think, or whatever, and what my opinion is the real reason it's happening, which is money and modernity and all of those things. But the rhetoric that gets imposed is, these people are terrible people that are going to blow your city up. Mm-hmm. And people believe it. And
yeah, that's certainly the that's the big issue on the right. I mean, yeah. I mean, we said it in his interview, which is, my position is the left is wrong about Islam and the right is wrong about Muslims. Mm-hmm. I think many people on the right think that Muslims are bad, and they're the boogeymen, and I don't believe that. But I also think the left is wrong in that it is not. The notion of jihad is very dangerous, and the ideas are very dangerous.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But just like there are ideas in the Bible that are equally dangerous.
No one would deny that. And if we were doing this podcast during the Crusades.
Yeah, you say that in the thing
yeah,
too.
I would have a bullhorn.
But I'm saying, but the difference is Christianity is in the modern world. It's infiltrated into places that have money and are modernized. The places where Islam is most extreme is not that. So,
with weird exceptions, yeah. But yeah, Saudi Arabia and the Wahhabis, they're living in one of the richest countries in the world, and yet it's, that's peculiar.
The richest countries for the rich people, not for the country.
I don't know the per capita, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to look, but I feel certain about that.
But it's weirdly the rich. It's bin Laden was from a super rich construction family. Mm-hmm. That's concerning.
But that's also part of the problem is there's a regime where this is
tolerated
and working, and it also creates more power, which they want. So it's all part of that system, and that's a problem. Mm-hmm. I think more so than the book, because all the books to me are similar.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so we talk about my boyfriend.
Which one?
Ben.
Oh, Ben Affleck, yeah.
Yeah, we talk about my boyfriend, and I feel like I didn't really stand up for him as much as I should have.
Okay.
I have some girlfriend guilt.
Okay, sure.
I did a little bit, but I should have done more.
Did you rewatch it?
I haven't. No, I didn't. I've watched it many times though.
Okay. It was recently on the Bill Maher 30th anniversary special. Yeah.
I think he is worried about the way what Sam says can be taken. The words he says can be weaponized. And the solution is not to further alienate people. And this could lead to that. That conversation that Sam was saying. I mean, I don't disagree with him. I think he's right about a lot of things, but you have to be really tactical about how you present it. It could have really terrible ramifications.
Yeah, so there's a great front line about white nationalists and the rise of their kind of, public displays in parks and these rallies they have and how violent they are. And this guy kind of tries to track these people that are kind of operating anonymously. And it's, to my complete shock and awe, he tracks one guy has got a security clearance at a weapons manufacturer and is in the doctorate program at UCLA. Now, like when I went to UCLA, the last thing I imagined that one of my peers there was a white nationalist.
Yeah.
That just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
You would think, oh, you wouldn't even be interested in going to whatever.
Yeah.
But while I was watching it, it occurred to me that to go, if you had those guys' ears, the white nationalists, to go to really think that the issue is Nazism and anti-Semitism is the issue, and that if you just go to explain to them how flawed their thinking is, that'll be the way out of this, or this will somehow prevent it. If we can prove that Nazism is flawed logic and flawed thinking, that will eradicate the problem. Mm-hmm. But it's so obvious to me that isn't the approach that would work with white nationalists. I mean, you have to first go, why are these guys even drawn to this thing?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you have to acknowledge, a lot of white men who have a huge sense of entitlement feel very disenfranchised by this system that's supposed to include them, and they feel excluded. So then they're looking for a scapegoat. When you just really start walking through how on earth someone finds themselves in that organization, you start recognizing that proving to them Hitler was on a shaky scientific foundation when he said that Aryans were superior is probably not going to yield results.
Oh, yeah.
Or is it even start to explain how the problem started?
Yeah. I mean, I think people who are, which Sam argues in this, but I definitely think that the people who are recruited into these extreme philosophies are
dealing with a host of issues more than just they're dead normal and they love that book.
Yeah, which is what Sam believes. He thinks that you can be a totally psychologically normal, and maybe you could be psychologically normal, but you are susceptible to feeling a part of something. You need to be a part of something.
I think you could pass every psych eval and still have this insane sense of entitlement that you're supposed to be special, and you just kind of find a cause that will allow you to quickly climb that ladder and be special
and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
They give you power, and if you are living a life where you feel powerless, it's going to be attractive. I don't see a difference between any culty group and that. I think most people, I mean, some do worse stuff than others, but the recruitment to me feels similar. It feels like when I walk by the Scientology Celebrity Center and there's, "Are you SAG?" ? We can help you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I get it. I get why people are going in there. They're desperate to get what they want. And that's all of these things. And again, the degree to which they brainwash you is different, but
and the outcome's different.
The outcome can be different. Yeah. He said 98% of girls in Somalia are still getting clitorectomies, and he's very close. It's 95% between the ages of 4 and 11, according to UNICEF.
Ugh. We're watching. Well, this will be, I'm going to warn you. This is a spoiler alert. If you haven't watched Handmaid's Tale, plug your ears. But someone gets a clitorectomy in that.
Yeah, it's really rough.
Ugh.
It's really, really rough.
No human being should be getting a clitorectomy.
No, they should not. In that same conversation, Sam was saying, like, don't call it female circumcision because then people will equate it to male circumcision, which is a completely different thing. And you said, yeah, because the goal of male circumcision when it was enacted was cleanliness, which is not true. I mean, that's definitely why people do. But when it started, the oldest documentary evidence of male circumcision comes from ancient Egypt. Circumcision was common, although not universal, among ancient Semitic peoples. In the aftermath of the conquest of Alexander the Great, however, Greek disliked circumcision because they regarded a man as only truly naked if he was not circumcised. The next resurgence was with Judaism and the coming of age ritual. So I think it was mainly about like being a man, even in these like ancient.
Yeah, I was definitely referencing Jewish circumcision, which was part of the overall covenant. And if you look at all those things, those traditional keeping kosher, shellfish, why don't they eat shellfish? Well, back then, 5,000 years ago, shellfish was very dangerous to consume. And so every one of the things to stay kosher and circumcision were health practice declarations.
I'm sure that's an aspect to it, but I think it's also about boyhood, manhood. It like represents a lot of those things. I mean, there wouldn't be a bris. There wouldn't be a ceremony if it was only about cleanliness. I mean, that's definitely obviously what it is now.
Well, let's start with this. We can agree that it's never been about denying males pleasure.
Definitely.
And female genital mutilation is 100% about denying women pleasure.
Yeah. But a lot of people are choosing to not circumcise these days because of...
There's no fucking point.
Because
it's the stupidest thing we do.
Yeah.
And it would be hard for me if I had a boy making that decision because I know it's completely stupid.
I know.
And yet I'd have this fear that he'd be the only kid in his gym class.
Yeah, I know.
That wasn't circumcised and he'd be humiliated.
I know.
Yeah, it's rough. But I did read something that like 50% of people in California are not getting circumcised now. 50% of new boys. Yeah,
wow.
It's very high. I was shocked with how high it is now.
So maybe maybe that's good. Maybe eventually it won't be a thing where a kid will go into gym class and feel.
In 2100 AD, when the mean temperature on planet Earth is 115, all boys will have their foreskin.
Yeah.
And maybe it will be a health issue again. So we're going to be so sweaty. We'll have to go back to it.
Maybe. We'll just keep circling back. He said John Walker Lynn's been in prison for 14 years. He was brought to trial in February of 2002. Do you want to do a quick math?
How long ago 2002 was? 16 years ago?
Yeah, 16 years. And he was sentenced to 20 years in prison, so he's almost done.
What did he do?
He was the American who...
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That was living in the basement.
Yeah.
Were you able to find out if he actually has a fatwa on his head? Do we know that about Sam? He must.
A what?
A fatwa, when they declare that you're an enemy of Islam. There's actually a reward to kill him.
I don't know.
If they put one on Salman Rushdie for writing that book, I feel like Sam for sure.
But I think they own, do they? Oh, yeah, because you said Larry David had one. Right?
Well, there was an episode where they very funny episode of Curb. Yeah, he writes some play and then it somehow ends up he gets a fatwa.
But isn't that normally, which is why that's a funny joke, it's like it's for Muslims.
No.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure.
No.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, I don't think so.
Because they're not allowed to, by the Quran standards, but if you believe in Sharia law, that you can't like denounce or do anything, but that's a Sharia law thing. So I don't think it could be placed on like Christians. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What I do want to make the point, because we have a lot of discussions, me and you, about like the current climate of men and women in this country, and males feeling isolated, and that women are making people are making sort of sweeping judgments on masculinity and males in general. And I would equate that to this Islam conversation, that if you feel like, well, it's detrimental to say that all men do this, it's the same with Islam. That if we're saying,
but again, no, what you and I always argue about is it precisely that, is that you say men, or in general, this conversation is men, and boys need to be talked to, and boys and boys. There's no specificity. I'm saying Islamists. I am very clear about who I'm critical of. I am critical of people that think they need to form a caliphate, that believe in fatwas, that believe in jihad.
Yeah.
And that's not the majority of Islam or Muslims.
Correct.
So I'm being very careful to pinpoint the people I think are the problem.
Okay.
And I don't observe that specificity. But my overall point, and when you and I argue about this all the time off the air, my overall point is this. If you want to have white privilege as a huge point of your platform, of your political party, and destroying white privilege, and men are an issue, and whether or not that's the point you're making, it may sound like that to people. I agree with everything you're saying. What I'm very fearful of is 61% of the country is white. So if your platform is, we got to end white privilege, you're not getting elected. That's my point. And likewise, if it's a war on men, we're half the population. You're not getting elected. I don't think that these things have been nearly phrased correctly. And I think it runs a huge risk of never winning an election. That's what I think.
Okay, well, I'm just making the comparison. What you're saying about not getting elected because of hitting these points and not saying them correctly, it's because you feel that when people say it that way, that it's isolating. And it's the same thing when you talk about Islam and Muslims. You have to say it correctly or you're going to isolate a huge group of people. And
well, by the way,
I think isolation is part of why these people get recruited in the first place. So I think it's just like a terrible cycle.
I agree, but you've never in my life heard me say that I'm critical of Muslims. I've never said that.
No.
I'm crazy critical of Islam, crazy critical of the Bible, of the Quran, of the Old Testament, of the Torah. I think all of it's dangerous.
Yes, but the solution to this issue is not to tell Muslims to stop believing in Islam. It's not happening.
No, I totally agree with you. The solution that even Sam is very vocal about, and so is Fareed, is Muslims leading
the
charge into a more moderate version.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. He talks about Mark Duplass. Do you remember this?
I do.
He tweeted something about Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro, yeah. And
then people got upset. Sam said, of course he doesn't agree with everything. People should know that. I don't think it's fair to say people should know that when Mark tweets, hey, there's a person that has challenging ideas, look into him, which I think means probably that Mark probably did not see those original tweets. I doubt he would have even said that, or maybe would have, but he apologized. And I think it's totally fine that he apologized.
Oh, I don't. I'm with Sam on this. This notion that if someone does one good thing or they make one good statement, and you want to point that out, and then you now what you've done is somehow approved of everything the person ever said. In what world is that? That's preposterous.
But he didn't say this tweet is interesting. He said, this person
Yes,
is worth looking into, is
as a
interesting, and
counterbalance.
this and that. So what people, his fans who like him, listened to him and said, okay, I'm going to look into it. And then they did. And I think they probably dove a little deeper than maybe even Mark did. And then they were like, this person is nuts. And
I totally disagree with you. I think people who already hated Ben Shapiro's guts and were aware of tweets of his from 4 years ago couldn't wait to seize on that. I don't think anyone who Mark said that to, who went to Ben Shapiro's current feed, got 4 years down the road between the ones that they're pissed about. I mean, look, Ben Shapiro tweeted making fun of Kristen. Post this whole interview, Ben Shapiro took aim at Kristen for having issues with the prince in Sleeping Beauty kissing a dead stranger. And a lot of his followers were right on board. Now, people sent that to me like, shouldn't you defend her? And I'm like, no, this guy has a different opinion, which is totally fucking fine. Yeah. I understand what he thinks clearly is that we're somehow saying we should burn all Disney books.
Yeah, which is
preposterous.
Not what she said even in the slightest. And
we read the book to our girls all the time. We love Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah.
We are not anti-Sleeping Beauty. We are simply pointing out that when you're reading it to your girls, you might want to mention, hey, it's kind of weird to kiss a dead person you've never met. This story has some arcane things to it, and we can discuss that. And that was her whole point.
Yeah.
And then I see Ben Shapiro's fear that we're just trying to, data dump everything in our history that doesn't match up perfectly with our current morals. I understand his point. He didn't call her bitch or a cunt or any of these things that would require defending. Him having a different opinion than my wife is totally fine, doesn't require defending. And people's
But is it a different opinion or what did he say?
Yeah, he wasn't mean to her at all.
What did he say? But he called her out by name.
Yeah. He thinks the thing she said was stupid, which is fine. He would never called her a name or was, violating the rules of discourse. He thinks what she said was stupid, and that's totally fine.
Well, it's also sure. He can think whatever he wants to think, but it's also not fine because he clearly didn't read the article. And then he's just picking out a headline and then making a grand judgment on a person publicly. I don't think that's fine. And I do think, I don't think she needs defending on any. I think she's perfectly capable of defending herself if she wants to or needs to. But I think that's crazy.
Let me ask you though, what's not fine about it? What, should he not be allowed to do it? Like, what's the extent of
I think it's
not
totally
fine?
not okay to take a headline, not get any nuance or any context or anything, and then put someone on blast publicly based on your zero knowledge. I think that makes you gross.
If that's what happened, if he didn't read the article, I don't know if he did or he didn't.
Well, he couldn't have because that's not what she said. That's not what she said at all.
The bottom line is he was not rude and he was not name calling and he has a different opinion. And even if you read the whole thing, he might have a different opinion.
Yeah.
And I think people try to give me shit for liking Sam Harris. That's crazy. He might say 10 things and I might disagree with 7 of them and I might love 3 of the things, and that's totally good. You should not be taking in information from people based solely on if you agree with everything they say. That's so stupid. It's so fucking stupid if you can only receive information from people that you agree with across the board on everything they've ever said. Get fucking real. And that's what those people who are trying to take down Duplass were saying, is because he enjoyed some of the points of view of Ben, that he should stand by everything Ben's ever said. And those people need to find a different planet where they only hear things they like hearing.
I think if you're a public person and you want to give someone else a platform, you do owe it to people to have done your due diligence. Now, maybe he did and maybe he didn't care. That's totally fine. But you can't be surprised if you put somebody up who's controversial and then expect people to just say, okay.
I think we're glossing over the much bigger, more important, profound, fundamental issue that people increasingly think that they need to agree with everything someone says. I think the takeaway of the Mark Duplass situation
I also think
for
it's
me is that
okay to apologize. I think it's okay. I don't think it's weak or anything. I think
apologizing when you feel bad is required and wonderful and vulnerable and a cornerstone to being a good person and growing. Placating people, I think, is a waste of time and it's a lie and it's dishonest. So if Mark really felt bad about doing that, then I'm glad he apologized.
Yeah.
I doubt Mark really felt bad saying Ben Shapiro often has some great conflicting opinions to the left. I doubt he really feels bad that he said that. But maybe he does.
I don't know. Yeah.
This was a hot button episode from beginning to end.
Well, when you have Sam on.
When you invite gasoline and matches into the attic, it's going to happen.
That's right.
I do want to say sometimes when you and I argue on here, people, they get sad. They tweet me that they hate when mom and dad fight. Monica and I always either walk home from here or drive home from here, and we've never gotten back to the house upset at each other.
Yeah, maybe one time.
Oh,
I have one more fact that's a fact.
Okay.
Okay, you said that we allocate 33 cents on every dollar to the military, bigger than the next 11 militaries combined. I think it's currently 24 cents of every tax dollar supports the Pentagon and military.
Just so I can clarify, I'm not getting rid of your facts. What is often not in that number is they don't include Homeland Security, and it doesn't sound like in that number they did. But yeah, whatever. If you include Homeland Security and stuff, but go ahead.
And it's the biggest after the next 7 countries, not 11, and bigger meaning we spend more.
Than the next
not
7 countries combined, correct?
Combined.
Yeah.
Yeah, we spend $610 billion.
Okay, great. So yeah, that makes sense for that number.
Yeah.
Because I think it's 1.2 trillion with Homeland Security and maybe NSA and stuff.
All righty.
This is a little bonkers.
That's it.
All right. I love you.
I love you.
We got through Sam. We were a little nervous.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I'm still nervous.
You're still nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we aim to be less divisive.
Yeah, but what I feel is this is Sam. I mean, we have people on to talk about them and talk about what makes them tick and what is
their
interesting to them and their work and their interests, and that's what Sam's interested in, and he's doing great. You know, he is expanding minds, and it's great, and this is a part of him, so of course it's going to be on the show.
Yeah, and minimally, even if you hate what he says, you think it's stupid, can lead to a compelling conversation.
Yeah.
That could bear fruit.
It is good to listen to people who challenge your normal thinking, even if it just means so you can build a good argument against it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you don't build a straw man argument.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I love you.
I love you too.
I love you way more than any election that's coming. Way more than my white privilege. Way more than my male privilege or my toxic masculinity.
Yeah. I love you more.
Do you think the fact that I want a Ferrari FF is toxic masculinity?
No, I don't. You can want whatever you want.
All right. I love you.
I love you.